A priceless sapphire brooch vanishes from Ashburn Hall, stolen under the noses of a glittering dinner party, slipped through the secret passage in the dead of night. Was it the desperate nephew, drowning in debt? Bettina, nervous maid, hiding a brother's dark secret? Or the charming diplomat whose smile masks a web of lies? As shadows move in the candlelit corridors and a cryptic note taunts Hercule Poirot, the sapphire hides where eyes cannot see. The master detective's little gray cells ignite. Hidden fortune, a smuggler's vault, and a serpent's deadly bite await. Can Poirot unravel the conspiracy before the jewel slips across the sea, or will the mastermind outwit him in this game of deception? Chapter 1. The Vanishing Heirloom. The late summer rain pattered against the tall, arched windows of Ashburn Hall, a grand estate nestled in the misty folds of the English countryside. Its stone facade, weathered by centuries, loomed like a silent guardian over manicured gardens and a gravel drive that crunched under the wheels of a sleek black Rolls-Royce. Inside the car, Hercule Poirot adjusted his pristine Homburg hat, his gloved fingers brushing a speck of imaginary dust from his immaculate suit. His mustache, a work of art in itself, twitched slightly as he observed the approaching manor through the rain-streaked window. "Mon ami," he murmured to his companion, "Captain Arthur Hastings. This is a house of secrets, Nan. Such grandeur often conceals the most intricate of crimes." Hastings, a man of earnest demeanor and unwavering loyalty, nodded absently, his eyes fixed on the towering turrets. "Looks like a place where anything could happen." Poirot, Lady Eleanor's invitation was rather urgent, wasn't it? "Urgent, yes," Poirot replied, his green eyes glinting with curiosity. "And vague. A theft, she says. But of what, and by whom?" This is why Poirot is summoned to unravel the threads of mystery where others see only chaos. The car rolled to a stop, and a liveried footman hurried forward with an umbrella. Poirot stepped out, his small, precise steps carrying him toward the oak doors that yawned open to reveal a cavernous hall. Crystal chandeliers glittered above a marble floor, and portraits of stern-faced Ashburns glowered from the walls. Lady Eleanor Ashburn herself awaited them, a statuesque woman in her 60s. Her silver hair swept into an elegant chignon. Her emerald gown shimmered, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, extending a hand adorned with a single glittering ring. "Your reputation precedes you. I am in desperate need of your talents." Poirot bowed, his mustache curving in a polite smile. "Madame, I am at your service. Pray, tell me of this misfortune that brings us to your magnificent home." Lady Eleanor led them to a drawing-room where a fire crackled, casting shadows on velvet drapes. She gestured to a pair of armchairs, and as Poirot and Hastings settled, she began. "Last night, during a dinner party, my family's most treasured possession, a sapphire brooch, passed down for generations, was stolen from my private safe. It is not merely its value, Monsieur Poirot, but its sentimental weight. My late husband, Lord Reginald, cherished it as a symbol of our lineage." Poirot's eyes narrowed, his fingers steepled. "The safe, madame, where is it located, and who knew of its existence?" "In my study, behind a portrait," she replied. "Only a few were aware of it. My nephew Charles, my maid Clara, and my butler Reginald. The guests last night were varied. I suspect one of them, but I cannot accuse without proof." "Not Tyrrell Monk," Poirot said. "And these guests, who were they?" Lady Eleanor sighed. "A mix of old friends and new acquaintances. There was Charles, of course, who has been troubled lately. Then Monsieur Dubois, a French diplomat, with a charming tongue but elusive manners. Mrs. Lavinia Gray, a widow with a sharp wit and sharper eyes. Dr. Alistair Thorne, a historian researching our family's past. And Miss Beatrice Lyle, a young heiress with a penchant for adventure. None seemed to type, yet the brooch is gone. Hastings leaned forward. Any enemies, Lady Eleanor? Someone with a grudge? She hesitated, her fingers tightening on her ring. The Ashburn name has its detractors. Captain Hastings. My husband's business dealings were not always scrupulous. But no one at the dinner stood out as a foe. Poirot's gaze flicked to the fireplace, where a log snapped, sending sparks aloft. Tell me, madame, of the dinner itself. The mood, the conversations, v. detail. C. vous plot. The previous evening had begun with the clink of champagne flutes and the hum of polite conversation. The dining room, resplendent with silver candelabras and a mahogany table, hosted the eclectic group under the glow of candlelight. Lady Eleanor, at the head, presided with grace, though her smiles were strained. Charles, a lanky man in his 30s, with a restless air, toyed with his fork, his eyes darting to the door. Monsieur Dubois, impeccably dressed, regaled the table with tales of Parisian intrigue. His accent smooth as velvet. Mrs. Gray, her silver hair adorned with a jet-black comb, listened with a sardonic smile, her comments laced with dry humor. Dr. Thorne, a bespectacled man with ink-stained fingers, spoke passionately of medieval artifacts, while Miss Lyle, her auburn curls bouncing, laughed too loudly at Dubois's stories. Poirot, listening to Lady Eleanor's recounting, noted, detail. You say Charles left the table briefly, madame. Yes, she replied. He excused himself to take a telephone call. He was gone, perhaps 10 minutes. And the others, did anyone else leave? Clara, the maid, was in and out, serving. No one else, I believe. Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing the information. I must see this study, madame, and the safe. Hey, and I should like to meet these guests, to observe their little gray cells in action. The study was a sanctuary of oak paneling and leather-bound books, its air heavy with the scent of old paper. A portrait of Lord Reginald, stern and imposing, hung above a fireplace. Lady Eleanor moved to it, revealing a small safe embedded in the wall. Its door was ajar, the lock undamaged. No signs of force, Poirot mused, his gloved fingers tracing the safe's edge. This was no brute. Someone knew the combination, or they were clever indeed. Hastings peered over his shoulder. Could have been picked, Poirot. I've seen thieves do wonders with a hairpin. Poirot chuckled softly. Hastings. Hairpin leaves, scratches, hesitations. This is clean. The thief was confident, prepared. As they examined the room, Poirot's sharp eyes caught a glint beneath the Persian rug. He knelt, retrieving a scrap of navy fabric, frayed at the edges. Tins, he said, holding it to the light. Silk, finely woven, not the attire of a servant, I think. Lady Eleanor frowned. That could belong to anyone. My guests were dressed for the occasion. Precisement, Poirot said, slipping the fabric into a small envelope. And so we begin to narrow the field. Now, let us meet these suspects of yours. The guests were gathered in the drawing room, their faces a tableau of curiosity and unease. Charles slouched in a corner, his fingers drumming on a glass of brandy. Dubois stood by the window, his posture relaxed, but his eyes watchful. Mrs. Gray sat with a novel, her gaze flicking up occasionally. Dr. Thorne scribbled in a notebook, while Miss Lyle paced, her energy barely contained. Poirot entered with a flourish, his presence commanding silence. Madame et messieurs, he began, his voice clear and precise. A crime has been committed in this house. A sapphire brooch, cherished by Lady Eleanor, has been stolen. I, Hercule Poirot, will find the culprit. I ask for your cooperation and your honesty. A murmur rippled through the room. Charles's glass paused midair. Stolen? That's absurd. Who'd dare? Who, indeed, Poirot said, his eyes locking onto Charles's. Perhaps you, monsieur, who left the table last night. Charles flushed. I was on the telephone. Business, you know. It's nothing to do with any brooch. Two-Boy raised an eyebrow. Monsieur Poirot, surely you don't suspect us all. I was charming the table, not sneaking about. Mrs. Gray closed her book with a snap. This is tiresome. I saw nothing, heard nothing. I was too busy enjoying the claret. Dr. Thorne adjusted his glasses. Was discussing heraldry with Miss Lyle. Hardly the moment for theft. Miss Lyle laughed, a touch nervously. Me? I was just trying to keep up with the doctor's lecture. I didn't even know about the safe. Poirot's smile was enigmatic, and yet someone did. Someone with knowledge, with opportunity. I shall find them. As the guests dispersed, Poirot lingered, his gaze sweeping the room. Hastings, ever practical, whispered, What now, Poirot? They all seem plausibly or implausible. Now, mon ami, we observe. The little gray sails, they work. This fabric, he held up the envelope, is a thread in the tapestry of truth, and there is more to find. They returned to the study, where Poirot examined the portrait of Lord Reginald. Its frame was slightly askew, as if recently moved. He pressed along the edges, and a faint click sounded. A panel slid open, revealing a narrow passage behind the bookshelf, its walls damp and cobwebbed. Good heavens, exclaimed the secret passage. Oui, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. This house, it keeps its secrets well, but not from Hercule Poirot. He stepped into the passage, his torch casting shadows. At its end, a small alcove held a single clue. A cigarette stub, its tip stained with a faint trace of lipstick. Poirot pocketed it, his mind racing. Back in the drawing room, Poirot gathered Lady Eleanor and Hastings. Madame, this passage suggests the thief knew the house intimately. The cigarette, the fabric, these are not accidents. Someone planned this theft with care. Lady Eleanor paled. You think it was one of my own? I think nothing yet, Poirot said. But I know this. The game is afoot, and Poirot shall not rest until the sapphires returned and the culprit unmasked. As the rain continued to fall, Poirot stood by the window, his silhouette sharp against the storm. But the mystery of Ashburn Hall had begun, and with it, a challenge worthy of his unparalleled mind. Chapter 2. Shadows in the Guest Wing. The morning sun pierced the heavy clouds over Ashburn Hall, casting dappled light through the tall windows of the guest wing. Hercule Poirot, his mustache impeccably groomed despite the early hour, stood in the corridor, his sharp eyes scanning the intricate wallpaper for any hint of irregularity. The discovery of the secret passage behind Lady Eleanor's study had set his mind ablaze, each clue a spark igniting his little gray sails. The navy, silk scrap and the lipstick-stained cigarette stub were safely tucked in his pocket. But they were mere fragments of a larger puzzle. Today, he would probe deeper, peeling back the polished veneer of the household to reveal its hidden truths. Captain Hastings, rubbing sleep from his eyes, joined him. Poirot, you're up early. Found anything new in that passage, man? Mon ami, Poirot replied, his voice a soft cadence. The passage itself is silent, but it whispers of opportunity. Someone used it to slip into the study, unnoticed. Today, we speak with the guests saying, the servants, their words will betray what their faces conceal. They began with the guest wing, a labyrinth of polished oak doors and Persian rugs. Poirot's first target was Charles Ashburn, Lady Eleanor's nephew, whose nervous demeanor at the previous night's confrontation lingered in Poirot's mind. They found him in his room, sprawled across a velvet chaise, a half-empty brandy decanter on the side table. His shirt was rumpled, his eyes bloodshot, as if sleep had eluded him. "Monsieur Charles," Poirot began, his tone courteous but firm. "You left the dinner table last night for a telephone call. A curious moment, Nan, for a thief to strike." Charles sat up, his fingers tightening around a glass. "I told you, it was business. A creditor, if you must know. I've had financial troubles. It's nothing to do with Aunt Eleanor's brooch." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And yet, you knew of the safe's existence. Perhaps she needed funds, and a sapphire was tempting." Charles's face reddened. "That's outrageous. I'd never steal from her. She's family." "Family," Poirot mused, "can be the most treacherous of circles. Where did you take this call, monsieur?" "In the library," Charles muttered. "There is a telephone there. I was gone 10 minutes, no more." Poirot nodded, filing the detail away. "Merci. We shall speak again." Next, they sought Clara, the maid. His fleeting presence at the dinner and nervous glances had not escaped Poirot's notice. They found her in the servants' quarters, polishing silver with a fervor that bordered on obsessive. Her hands, small and calloused, trembled slightly as she set down a candlestick. "Miss Clara," Poirot said, his voice gentle, "you served a dinner last night. You moved freely, Nan. Perhaps you saw something unusual." Clara's eyes darted to the door, then back to Poirot. "I was busy, sir, carrying trays, clearing plates. I didn't see nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing." Poirot tilted his head, studying her. Not even a guest lingering where they should not, or perhaps a shadow in a corridor. Her breath hitched, and she dropped a spoon, the clatter echoing in the quiet room. I don't know what you mean, sir." Poirot stepped closer, his gaze piercing. "Kia, the passage behind the study. Mademoiselle, you know of it, do you not?" Clara's face paled, but she shook her head. Just a maid. I don't know about no passages." Hastings frowned. "Come now, Clara. You've worked here for years. You must know the house's secrets." "I swear, I don't," she protested, her voice cracking. "I just do my work." Poirot held up a hand, silencing Hastings. "Very well. But if you recall anything, you would tell Poirot. We?" She nodded, her eyes downcast, and Poirot led Hastings away. "She knows more than she says," he murmured. "Her fear is not of us, but of something or someone else." The morning progressed with interviews of the other guests. Monsieur Dubois, the French diplomat, greeted them in his suite with a disarming smile, his silk cravat flawless. "Monsieur Poirot, your reputation is formidable, but I assure you I am merely a guest, enchanted by Lady Eleanor's hospitality." "Enchanted, perhaps," Poirot said, "but also observant. You sat near the study door during dinner. Did you see Charles leave, or perhaps someone else?" Dubois's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "I was engrossed in conversation. Mrs. Gray's wit is quite captivating. I noticed nothing amiss." Poirot's mustache twitched. "And your own movements, monsieur. You did not, perhaps, take a stroll to admire the house's architecture." Dubois laughed a touch too heartily. "Architecture? Nan, I prefer the company of the living to cold stone." Mrs. Lavinia Gray, interviewed in the conservatory amid blooming orchids, was less evasive, but no less guarded. Her sharp eyes assessed Poirot as she sipped tea. "Saw Charles leave?" "Yes, he looked agitated, but that's nothing new. The boy's always in some trouble." "And you, madame?" Poirot asked. "You remained at the table, of course," she snapped. "I'm not one for sneaking about. If I wanted that brooch, I'd have bought it, not stolen it." Dr. Alistair Thorne, found in the library poring over a medieval manuscript, was distracted but cooperative. "I was discussing heraldry with Miss Lyle," he said, adjusting his glasses. "The Ashburn crest is fascinating. Did you know it dates to the 14th century?" "Fascinating, oui, Poirot said, but less so than a thief's movements. You saw nothing unusual. Thorne blinked. I'm afraid I was lost in thought. Okay. Manuscripts are more reliable than people, Monsieur Poirot. Miss Beatrice Lyle, the last to be questioned, was a whirlwind of energy, her auburn curls bouncing as she paced the billiard room. I didn't see a thing, she declared. I was laughing at Monsieur Dubois's stories. Ace. Terribly. Funny, you know? Funny, perhaps, Poirot said, but also elusive. You are certain you remained at the table? Absolutely, she said, then hesitated. Okay, well, I did pop out for a moment to powder my nose, but I was back in a flash. Poirot's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing, merely nodding as they left her to her restless pacing. As the evening fell, the house grew quiet, the guests retiring to their rooms. Poirot, however, was far from rest. The secret passage gnawed at him, its existence a silent accusation against the household's inner circle. He decided to explore it, again, under cover of night, hoping to catch the thief's trail. At midnight, clad in a dark overcoat, Poirot and Hastings crept to the study. The passage's entrance yawned behind the bookshelf, its air damp and heavy. Poirot's torch illuminated cobwebs and stone, but as they reached the alcove where he'd found the cigarette stub, a faint sound froze them. A soft footfall, followed by a muffled gasp. Poirot signaled for silence. His torch dimmed. They pressed against the wall, listening as the sound grew closer. A figure emerged, cloaked in shadow, moving with purpose toward the study. Poirot's heart quickened. The figure paused, then retreated, as if sensing danger. After them, Hastings whispered, but Poirot held him back. Nan, we observe, he said. We learn more in the shadows than in pursuit. They waited, the silence oppressive, until a second sound broke the stillness. A scream, sharp and fleeting, from the guest wing. Poirot and Hastings hurried back through the passage, emerging into the study and racing down the corridor. They found Clara in her room, her face ashen, her hands clutching a shawl. I saw it, she stammered. Shadow moving past my door. It went toward the study. Poirot's eyes flicked to her hands, noting the absence of lipstick on her fingers. A shadow, you say? Describe it, mademoiselle. Tall, thin, she said. Wearing a cloak, I think. It moved so fast, I couldn't see the face. Hastings frowned. Why were you awake? Clara, it's past midnight. I couldn't sleep, she said, her voice trembling. Not with all this talk of theft. Poirot studied her, his mind cataloging her fear, her evasiveness. Merci, mademoiselle. Return to your rest. We shall investigate. Back in the corridor, Poirot knelt, his torch sweeping the floor. Near Clara's door, he found a smudge of mud, fresh and distinct, leading toward the study. Tins, he murmured. Our shadow is careless. They followed the trail to the study, where the portrait was slightly ajar, as if recently disturbed. Poirot examined the safe again, finding no new clues, but as he turned to leave, his foot brushed against a small object beneath a cherished silver cufflink, engraved with a serpent. Hastings, Poirot said, holding it up. This is not the possession of a servant. This belongs to someone of means, someone who moves in the night. Hastings's eyes widened. Charles, or Dubois, perhaps, Poirot said, or someone we have yet to consider. The cufflink, the mud, the shadow, these are pieces of a puzzle, and Poirot shall fit them together. As they returned to their rooms, the house seemed to pulse with secrets, its walls whispering of betrayal. Poirot paused at a window, the moonlight casting his silhouette against the glass. The game, mon ami, grows more intricate, but Hercule Poirot is not deterred. Tomorrow, we dig deeper. Chapter 3. The cryptic note. The dawn at Ashburn Hall broke with a fragile stillness, the kind that follows a night of secrets and screams. Hercule Poirot, ever punctual, stood in his guest room, his reflection in the mirror, a study in precision. Mustache waxed to perfection, suit immaculate, and eyes alight with the thrill of the chase. The cufflink, with its serpent engraving, found in the study, rested in a small velvet pouch beside the navy silk scrap and the lipstick-stained cigarette stub. Each clue was a thread in the tapestry of the stolen sapphire brooch, and Poirot's mind wove them with relentless focus. The scream from Clara, the maid, act, and the shadowy figure she claimed to have seen had deepened the mystery. But it was a new discovery that morning that set his heart racing that, as he adjusted his tie. A faint rustle came from beneath his door. Poirot's movements were swift, yet silent, as he crossed the room and retrieved a folded slip of paper, its edges crisp, as if freshly torn. In elegant, looping script, it read, "The sapphire hides where eyes cannot see." No signature, no flourish, just a cryptic phrase, taunting him with its ambiguity. "Tiens," Poirot murmured, his green eyes narrowing. A challenge or a misdirection? The little gray cells, they are summoned to battle. Captain Hastings, entering with a tray of tea, caught sight of the note. "Was that, Poirot, another clue?" "Spicement," Poirot replied, holding the paper to the light. "Delivered in the night, like a whisper from our thief, or, perhaps, a warning." Hastings set the tray down, his brow furrowed. "Sounds like a riddle. Any idea what it means?" "Not yet, mon ami," Poirot said, his voice a velvet hum. "But riddles are the language of the cunning. We shall decipher it. First, we return to the heart of this house, the library. Something tells Poirot it holds more than books. The library of Ashburn Hall was a cathedral of knowledge, its shelves soaring to a vaulted ceiling painted with faded cherubs. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting kaleidoscopic patterns on the parquet floor. Poirot's gaze swept the room. Lingering on the telephone where Charles claimed to have taken his call, the heavy oak tables, and a row of portraits along the far wall. The notes, words where eyes cannot see, echoed in his mind, urging him to look beyond the obvious. He approached a mahogany desk, its surface cluttered with papers and a brass inkstand. "Hastings," he said, "search the shelves. Look for anything out of place. A book that does not belong, a panel that yields." Hastings nodded, his enthusiasm undimmed by the early hour. "Righto, Poirot. Call. I suspect you already know where to look." Poirot's mustache twitched with a faint smile. "Suspicion is not certainty, mon ami. But the library is a place of secrets, and secrets love to hide in plain sight." As Hastings rummaged through shelves, Poirot examined the desk, his gloved fingers probing its edges. A faint seam caught his attention, barely visible beneath a carved frieze of ivy leaves. He pressed gently, and a soft click echoed. A small drawer, cunningly concealed, slid open to reveal a leather-bound diary, its cover embossed with the initials, "R. A. Reginald Ashburn, Lady Eleanor's late husband." "Monsieur," Poirot breathed, lifting the diary with care. Its lock was intricate, a puzzle in itself, but the leather was worn, as if frequently handled. "This, Hastings, is no ordinary book. It guards a secret, perhaps tied to our sapphire." Hastings peered over his shoulder. "Lord Reginald's diary. Could it tell us why the brooch was stolen?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, slipping the diary into his satchel. "But first, we must open it, okay? And we must speak with those who knew Lord Reginald best." They found Lady Eleanor in the morning room, her hands folded over a cup of tea, her expression weary but composed. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, "have you made progress?" Madame Poirot replied, producing the note. "This was delivered to my room." "Do you recognize the hand?" She studied the paper, her brow creasing. "No, I'm afraid not." "It's elegant, but unfamiliar. What does it mean?" A clue, perhaps, Poirot said. Or a taunt. Tell me, madame, of your husband's diary. Did he keep one in the library, lady? Eleanor's eyes widened. Reginald was private about his writings. I knew he kept a diary, but I thought it lost after his passing. Have you found it? Poirot said, choosing his words carefully. It is locked, but it may hold answers. What secrets did your husband guard? She hesitated, her fingers tightening on her cup. Reginald was a complex man. His business ventures shipping, mostly, were not always transparent. He spoke little of them, even to me. The brooch, though, he cherished. He said it was a key to our family's legacy. A key, you say? Poirot's eyes gleamed. To what, madame? I never knew, she admitted. He was superstitious about it, almost protective. He said it must never leave the family. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. The diary, the brooch, the note-teach piece hinted at a deeper motive, one rooted in the Ashburn legacy. Their next stop was Charles, whom they found in the garden, pacing beneath a willow tree. His coat was askew, his face pale. Monsieur, Charles Poirot called. A word, s'il vous plaît. Charles turned, his eyes wary. What now, Poirot? I've told you everything. Not everything, Poirot said, holding up the diary. This belonged to your uncle. Did he share its contents with you? Charles's gaze flicked to the diary, his jaw tightening. Uncle Reginald? No, he was secretive, kept to himself, especially after his business deals went sour. And yet, Poirot pressed, you are troubled. This diary, it makes you uneasy, Nan. I don't know anything about it, Charles snapped, then softened. Look, I was close to him once, but he changed, became distant. If that diary's important, I wouldn't know. Poirot studied him, noting the sweat on his brow despite the cool air. Very well, but if you recall anything, you would tell Poirot. The day wore on, with further interviews. Monsieur Dubois, lounging in the billiard room, deflected questions with charm. Diary. How quaint. I'm a man of the present, Monsieur Poirot, not the past. Mrs. Lavinia Gray, knitting in the conservatory, was dismissive. Reginald was a bore about his papers. If he wrote anything, it was probably about profits and losses. Dr. Alistair Thorne, back in the library, perked up at the mention of the diary. Lord Reginald's writings. They could be invaluable to my research. He was rumored to have dabbled in unorthodox ventures. Beatrice Lyle, practicing archery on the lawn, laughed off the question. A diary. Sounds like something out of a novel. I'm here for fun, not old secrets. Each conversation added layers to the mystery, but no one admitted to knowing the diary's contents soared to writing the note. Poirot, undeterred, returned to his room to examine the diary's lock. It was a complex mechanism requiring a key or a skilled hand. He summoned the butler Reginald, whose steady demeanor had thus far gone unnoticed. Reginald, Poirot said, you served Lord Ashburn. Did he entrust you with keys to his private effects? The butler, a man of rigid posture and graying temples, shook his head. His lordship kept his keys close, sir. I managed the household, not his personal affairs. And last night, Poirot continued, where were you when the brooch was taken? In the pantry, sir, overseeing the staff? I heard nothing unusual. Poirot nodded, dismissing him, but noting the butler's calm to calm, perhaps, for a house in turmoil that evening. As the household dined, Poirot slipped away to the library, determined to crack the diary's lock. Using a set of fine tools, he worked with surgical precision, the lock yielding after a tense hour. The pages within were filled with Lord Reginald's tight script, detailing shipments, coded names, and references to a blue key that unlocked a fortune hidden beyond the estate. Poirot's pulse quickened. The brooch was no mere heirloom, it was a literal key tied to a secret wealth. But whose hand had penned the note, and who had slipped it under his door? As he closed the diary, a floorboard creaked behind him. He spun, his torch catching a fleeting glimpse of a figure in the doorway, tall, cloaked, and gone before he could pursue. Hastings, entering moments later, found Poirot staring into the shadows. "Someone watches us, Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low. "The note was no accident. The thief is bold, but they fear exposure. Tomorrow, we follow the trail of this blue key." The night closed around Ashburn Hall, its secrets pulsing like a heartbeat. Poirot, clutching the diary, knew the game had escalated. The sapphire's theft was no simple crime. It was a move in a chess match, and he, Hercule Poirot, was determined to checkmate his opponent. Chapter 4. The Midnight Rendezvous. The moon hung low over Ashburn Hall, its pale light filtering through the mullioned windows, casting long shadows that danced across the polished floors. Hercule Poirot, his silhouette sharp against the dim glow of a single candle, stood in the study, his mind a whirl of deductions. The cryptic note the sapphire hides where eyes cannot see had led him to Lord Reginald's diary, its pages revealing the sapphire brooch as a key to a hidden fortune. The serpentine-engraved cufflink, the lipstick-stained cigarette stub, and the smudge of mud near Clara's room were pieces of a puzzle, each pointing to a thief who moved with cunning and familiarity. But the fleeting figure in the library, glimpsed just hours ago, had ignited a new urgency in Poirot. Tonight, he would stalk the shadows himself, determined to catch the thief in their own game. Captain Hastings, ever loyal but visibly uneasy, adjusted his overcoat as they prepared to re-enter the secret passage behind the study's bookshelf. "Poirot, are you sure about this? Sneaking about at midnight? It's not exactly your usual method." "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice a soft murmur. "The usual methods are for ordinary crimes. This thief, they are bold, taunting Poirot with notes and shadows. We must meet them on their own ground. The passage, it is their path. Tonight, we wait." He adjusted his scarf, concealing the gleam of his watch, and slipped a small torch into his pocket. The passage, damp and narrow, seemed to pulse with secrets as they entered, the air heavy with the scent of earth and stone. Poirot's torch cast a thin beam, illuminating cobwebs and the faint scuff marks of recent passage. They reached the alcove where the cigarette stub had been found. "K," and Poirot signaled for silence. K. His senses attuned to the slightest sound. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The only noise, the faint drip of water somewhere deep in the walls. Then a soft creak echoed from the passage's far end, followed by the rustle of fabric. Poirot's hand tightened on his torch, his heart quickening. A figure emerged, cloaked in dark wool, moving with the stealth of a cat. The figure paused at the study's entrance, their hand reaching for the bookshelf's hidden catch. Poirot whispered to Hastings, "Do not move. We observe." The figure slipped into the study, unaware of their watchers. Poirot crept forward, his steps silent, and peered through the gap in the bookshelf. The cloaked intruder knelt by the safe, their gloved hands probing its edges, as if searching for something left behind. A faint clink sounded. A tool, perhaps, dropped in haste. The figure froze, then stood, retreating back toward the passage. "Now, Hastings," Poirot hissed, and they sprang forward, blocking the passage's exit. The figure whirled, their face obscured by a hood, but a gasp betrayed their surprise. Before Poirot could speak, they darted sideways, vanishing into a side tunnel Poirot hadn't noticed in his earlier exploration. "After them," Hastings cried, but Poirot grabbed his arm. "Non, mon ami, they know this maze better than we. Pursuit is futile, but they have left us a gift." He knelt where the figure had stood, his torch revealing a small silver hairpin, its tip bent as if used to pick a lock. "Tins," Poirot murmured, slipping it into an envelope. Our thief is resourceful, but careless in their haste. In the study, Poirot examined the safe again, finding no new damage, but noting the faint scratches around the lock marks of an amateur, not a professional. The hairpin suggested a woman or someone clever enough to plant such a clue. His thoughts turned to Clara, whose scream the previous night had drawn them to the guest wing. Her fear had seemed genuine, but her evasiveness gnawed at him. "We must speak with Mademoiselle Clara again," Poirot said. "Her room is near the passage's exit. Perhaps she saw more than she claims." They found Clara in the servants' quarters, mending a tablecloth by lamplight. Her hands trembled as she looked up, her eyes wide. "Monsieur Poirot, it's late. What's happened?" "A shadow," Mademoiselle Poirot said, his gaze piercing. "One that moves through secret passages. You screamed last night, claiming to have seen such a figure. Tonight, we find this." He held up the hairpin, watching her reaction. Clara's face paled, her needle pausing mid-stitch. "That's not mine. I swear, I don't know anything about passages or pins." "Then tell me," Poirot pressed, "what you saw last night." "Every detail. S'il vous plaît." She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was awake, like I said. I heard footsteps, soft ones, outside my door. I looked out and saw someone in a cloak, tall and thin, moving toward the study. I was scared, so I screamed." "And did you follow?" Poirot asked. "No, sir," she said, shaking her head. "Okay. Shut my door and stayed put. But I heard another sound later, like a door closing, far off." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And this hairpin? Have you seen one like it? Perhaps among the guests?" Clara hesitated, then nodded. "Slyest has one like that. Saw it when I was tidying her room. But lots of ladies use pins, don't they?" "Indeed," Poirot said, his tone neutral. "Merci, mademoiselle. You have been most helpful." Has they left the servants' quarters? Hastings frowned. "Beatrice Lyle. She's all energy and laughs. Doesn't strike me as a thief." "Appearances," Hastings, Poirot said, "are the thief's greatest ally." Miss Lyle left the dinner to powder her nose. A convenient absence. Nan, we must watch her closely. Their next move was to inspect Miss Lyle's room, under the pretense of checking the guest wing's security. The room was a riot of color, with silk scarves draped over chairs, and a vanity cluttered with perfumes and jewelry. Poirot's eyes scanned the chaos, landing on a small silver case. Inside, he found several hairpins, one matching the bent one from the passage. "Interesting," he murmured, replacing the case. "But a hairpin is not proof. We need more." As they left, a faint noise caught Poirot's ear-muffled conversation from the adjacent room belonging to Monsieur Dubois. He pressed his ear to the wall, catching fragments of French, spoken in a low, urgent tone. "The blue must be secured. Tomorrow night, the buyer waits." Poirot's pulse quickened. He motioned for Hastings to follow, and they slipped into the corridor, just in time to see Clara hurrying toward the back stairs, a bundle in her arms. Poirot's instincts flared she was meeting someone. They trailed her through the servants' entrance, crossed the dew-soaked lawn, to a copse of trees where a figure waited, cloaked in darkness. The moonlight revealed Clara handing the bundle to a man, his face obscured by a hat. Their voices were low, but Poirot caught the word brooch before the man vanished into the night. Clara turned, gasping, as she saw Poirot and Hastings. "It's not what you think," she cried. He's my brother, Tom. He's in trouble, needed money. I gave him some of my savings. That's all." "Your brother?" Poirot said, his tone skeptical. "And this brother, he knows of the brooch?" "No," Clara insisted. "God told him nothing about it. I swear, I'm no thief." "Then why meet in secret?" Poirot asked. "And why mention the brooch?" Clara's eyes filled with tears. I I heard him talking to someone on the telephone days ago. He mentioned a blue jewel, but I thought it was just talk. I didn't know it was Lady Eleanor's. Poirot studied her, his mind weighing her fear against her story. Return to the house, mademoiselle. But know this, Poirot sees all, and the truth will not hide forever. Back in his room, Poirot examined the hairpin again, its bent tip glinting in the lamplight. The rendezvous Dubois's whispered conversation and Clara's mysterious brother formed a web of intrigue, each strand leading back to the sapphire. He summoned Hastings to the study, where he spread out his clues: the silk scrap, the cigarette stub, the cufflink, and now the hairpin. "Hastings," he said, "we have a thief who moves like a ghost, leaving tokens of their presence. But this brother of Clarisse is a new player. We must learn more." "How?" Hastings asked. "He's gone, and Clara's not talking." Poirot smiled, a gleam in his eye. "We send a message, mon ami, Scotland Yard, for a trace on this Tom, and we watch Miss Lyle, whose hairpin betrays her carelessness. The game, it tightens." The clock struck 2. Poirot stood by the window, the night stretching vast and silent before him. The sapphire brooch was out there, hidden where eyes could not see, but Hercule Poirot's vision was sharper than most. The midnight rendezvous had revealed a new player, and the chase was far from over. Chapter 5. The diplomats disguised the morning mist clung to the grounds of Ashburn Hall, veiling the estate in a shroud of mystery that matched the enigma unfolding within its walls. Hercule Poirot, his mustache a perfect crescent against his composed features, stood in the grand hall, his gloved hands clasped behind his back. The events of the previous night, the midnight rendezvous, Clara's secretive meeting with her elusive brother, and the bent hairpin matching those in Miss Beatrice Lyle's room had sharpened his focus. The sapphire brooch, a key to a hidden fortune, as revealed by Lord Reginald's diary, remained elusive, but Poirot's little gray cells buzzed with connections. The muffled conversation he had overheard from Monsieur Dubois's room, mentioning a blue and a buyer, gnawed at him. The French diplomat, with his polished charm and evasive answers, was a puzzle demanding scrutiny. Captain Hastings, ever the faithful shadow, joined Poirot, his face etched with concern. "Poirot, that business with Clara last night, her brother, Tom, sounds like trouble. And that hairpin. Do you think Beatrice Lyle is our thief?" "Patience, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice a soft cadence. "The hairpin is a clue, oui, but clues are like stars alone. They are merely points of light. Together they form a constellation. We turn now to Monsieur Dubois. His words last night suggest he knows more than he admits. Today we unmask him." They made their way to the morning room, where the guests were gathered for breakfast. The air was thick with the aroma of coffee and toast, but an undercurrent of tension simmered beneath the polite clinks of cutlery. Charles Ashburn toyed with a grapefruit, his eyes darting nervously. Mrs. Lavinia Gray sipped tea, her sharp gaze missing nothing. Dr. Alistair Thorne scribbled in a notebook, while Miss Beatrice Lyle chatted animatedly, her laughter a touch too bright. Monsieur Dubois, impeccable in a tailored suit, buttered a scone with deliberate care. Poirot approached Dubois, his smile courteous but unyielding. "Monsieur, a word, if you please." In private, Dubois raised an eyebrow, his charm unfaltering. "Of course, Monsieur Poirot. Shall we adjourn to the library?" They settled in the library, its shelves a silent audience to their confrontation. Hastings stood by the door, his posture alert. Poirot wasted no time. "Monsieur Dubois, your credentials as a diplomat, they are impressive, Nan. Yet I have made inquiries. The French embassy knows no Henry Dubois matching your description." The diplomat's smile faltered, a crack in his polished facade. "An error, surely. My work is sensitive." Not all diplomats are listed in public records. Sensitive, oui, Poirot said, his eyes glinting. Sensitive enough to involve a blue prize and a buyer, as you whispered last night. Tell me, monsieur, what is your true business at Ashburn Hall? Quaz's fingers tightened on his chair's armrest. You eavesdrop, Monsieur Poirot. That is beneath the man of your reputation. And deception, Poirot countered, is beneath a man of diplomacy. Your credentials are forged. Q or no diplomat. Who to you, and what do you want with the cake? T. What do you want with the sapphire brooch? The room fell silent, the weight of Poirot's words hanging heavy. Dubois leaned back, his composure fraying. Very well, he said at last. My name is Henry Duval, not Dubois. I am a broker of sorts. I deal in rare artifacts. The sapphire brooch caught my interest when Lady Eleanor mentioned it months ago. I came to evaluate its worth. To steal it, you mean? Hastings interjected, his voice sharp. Duval's eyes flashed. I did not steal it. Yes, I wanted it. It's a masterpiece, worth a fortune on the right market, but someone beat me to it. I swear, I am no thief. Rose. Mustache twitched. Then why the coded telegram in your room? Blue prize secured. Buyer awaits. Explain, monsieur. Duval paled, his bravado crumbling. You've been thorough, haven't you? The telegram was a precaution. I have contacts who would pay handsomely for the brooch, but I needed to confirm its authenticity first. I was planning to negotiate with Lady Eleanor. Negotiate, Poirot said, his tone laced with skepticism. Or perhaps you work with others. Clara's brother, Tom, perhaps. Miss Lyle, whose hairpin was found in the passage. Duval's jaw tightened. I know Tom and Beatrice. She's a child, not a conspirator. I work alone. Poirot leaned forward, his gaze piercing. Alone, you say, yet your telegram suggests a network. Where is it, Monsieur Duval? In your room, perhaps? Without waiting for permission, Poirot signaled to Hastings, and they escorted a protesting Duval to his suite. The room was a study in elegant silk ties, draped over a chair, mahogany shaving kit, a suitcase monogrammed with H.D. Poirot's. Eyes swept the space, landing on a leather portfolio tucked beneath a stack of books. He opened it, revealing a single sheet of telegram, written in code. Blue prize secured. Meet at Dover. Midnight, 18th. Dover, Poirot murmured. A port, a place to slip away with stolen goods. Nan, Duval's shoulders slumped. I told you, I didn't steal it. I was optimistic. I thought I could acquire it legally, through persuasion. Poirot pocketed the telegram. Your optimism, monsieur, is suspicious. You will remain under watch until Poirot verifies your story. Hastings, ensure he does not leave the house. As they left Duval's room, Hastings whispered, Do you believe him, Poirot? He's slippery, but he seemed rattled. Rattled, oui, Poirot said, but not innocent. He is a piece of the puzzle, not the whole picture. We must now investigate this buyer in Dover. The day unfolded with a flurry of activity. Poirot sent a discreet message to Inspector Japp at Scotland Yard, requesting information on Henry Duval and any known associates in Dover. Meanwhile, he turned his attention to the other guests, seeking connections to Duval's scheme. Charles Ashburn, cornered in the billiard room, denied any knowledge of Duval's true identity. C seemed like a decent chap, Charles said, his hands fidgeting. Talked about art and wine. Never mentioned brokers or jewels. Mrs. Lavinia Gray, found in the conservatory, was more forthcoming. I knew he wasn't what he seemed, she said, her knitting needles clicking. Too smooth, too eager to please. Men like that always have an angle. Dr. Alistair Thorne, engrossed in a manuscript, scoffed at the idea of Duval's deception. A broker. Fascinating. Lord Reginald dealt with such men-shady types, moving artifacts across borders. Perhaps Duval knew him, as Beatrice Lyle, practicing her violin in the music room, laughed off the accusation. Sieur Dubois. Duval, whatever his name is? He's charming, but I'm not in his pocket. I'm here for a holiday, not a heist. Poirot's interviews yielded no direct links to Duval, but each conversation deepened his suspicion that the brooch's theft was part of a larger scheme. The diary's mention of a blue key and a hidden fortune suggested a motive beyond mere greed. And Duval's coded telegram hinted at a network waiting to profit. That afternoon, Poirot returned to the study, determined to uncover more about the passage's role in the theft. He examined the alcove where the hairpin had been found, noticing a faint scuff mark on the stone floor, as if something heavy had been dragged. Kneeling, he traced the mark to a loose flagstone, which lifted to reveal a small, dust-covered box. Inside was a single item, a glass vial, empty, but bearing a faint chemical scent. Hastings, Poirot said, holding up the vial. This is no ordinary hiding place. This vial, it suggests preparation, perhaps a sedative or a tool of deception. Our thief is meticulous. Hastings frowned. A sedative, to knock out a guard, or Lady Eleanor, or to ensure silence, Poirot said. We must test this vial, and we must watch Clara, whose brother speaks of a blue jewel. They sent the vial to a local chemist for analysis, with instructions to report urgently. As evening fell, Poirot gathered the household in the drawing room, his presence commanding attention. Madame et messieurs, he said, the net tightens. Monsieur Dubois is not who he claims, and the sapphire brooch is but a piece of a larger game. I urge you speak now, if you know anything, or face the consequences of silence. The room buzzed with unease, but no one spoke. Charles stared at his shoes, Clara twisted her apron, and Duval's eyes burned with defiance. Poirot dismissed him, his mind already plotting the next move. Late that night, as the house slept, Poirot sat by his window, the telegram in hand. Dover, a port city, was a gateway to the Continental, perfect escape for a thief with a priceless jewel. But Duval's confession, partial as it was, suggested he was a pawn, not the mastermind. The vial, the hairpin, the coded message all pointed to a conspiracy woven through the heart of Ashburn Hall. Hastings, Poirot said, as his friend yawned beside him. Tomorrow we follow the trail to Dover, but first we must unlock the secrets of this vial and Clara's brother. The sapphire is near, mon ami, and Poirot will not let it slip away. The night stretched on, the shadows of Ashburn Hall hiding truths yet to be revealed. Poirot's resolve burned bright, a beacon in the darkness of deceit. Chapter 6. The diary's secret. The dawn light filtered through the heavy drapes of Ashburn Hall, casting a soft glow over the study where Hercule Poirot sat, his gloved fingers tracing the worn leather cover of Lord Reginald Ashburn's diary. The revelations of the previous to Monsieur Dubois's true identity as Henry Duval, a broker of artifacts, and the discovery of the coded telegram pointing to a buyer in Doverhead, tightened the web of intrigue around the stolen sapphire brooch. It's the empty vial found in the secret passage, its faint chemical scent hinting at subterfuge. It's Clara's clandestine meeting with her brother Tom, who spoke of a blue jewel, had deepened the mystery. But it was the diary, unlocked after hours of meticulous work, that now held Poirot's attention. Its pages, filled with cryptic entries about a blue key and a hidden fortune, suggested the brooch was more than a family heirloom. It was a linchpin in a shadowy legacy. Captain Hastings, nursing a cup of tea, leaned against the oak desk, his brow furrowed. Poirot, that diary's a gold mine, isn't it? If the brooch is a key to some fortune, no wonder someone stole it. But who? Duval, Clara's brother. Poirot's mustache twitched, his green eyes gleaming with focus. Patience, mon ami. The diary, It speaks of secrets, but it does not name the thief. It tells us of Lord Reginald's dealings that were, shall we say, less than honorable. We must read carefully to understand the stakes. He opened the diary, his pages yellowed but legible, and began to read aloud an entry dated 3 years prior. The blue key must remain with the family. The fortune, hidden in the cliffs, awaits the one who holds it. Trust no one, not even those closest. Another entry, months later, mentioned a consortium of buyers. Its names coded as initials JV, MCL, TN. A warning, they will stop at nothing to claim it. Poirot closed the diary, his mind racing. The sapphire, Hastings, is not merely a jewel. It is a key, perhaps literally, to a fortune concealed somewhere near this estate. The cliffs likely along the coast. But who knew of this? And who dares to betray Lady Eleanor? Hastings frowned. Charles, maybe. He's family, and he's in debt. He'd know about his uncle's secrets, wouldn't he? Perhaps, Poirot said, his voice a soft cadence. But Charles is a creature of impulse, not calculation. This theft requires precision. We must question him again, and we must learn more of this consortium. They found Charles Ashburn in the morning room, his hands shaking as he poured a glass of brandy, despite the early hour. His eyes, bloodshot and wary, flicked to Poirot as they entered. What now, Monsieur Poirot? I have told you everything. I didn't take the bloody brooch. Poirot's smile was disarming, but his gaze was sharp. Sir Charles, let us speak of your uncle, Lord Reginald. His diary mentions a fortune, hidden and guarded by the sapphire. You are close to him, Nan. Did he ever speak of such a thing? Charles's glass paused mid-air, his face paling. A fortune, a task. Nonsense. Uncle Reginald was a businessman, not some pirate hiding treasure. He never said anything about it. And yet, Poirot pressed, you are troubled. The diary speaks of a consortium, men who coveted this fortune. Did your uncle have enemies, perhaps in his shipping ventures? Charles set the glass down, his fingers trembling. He had disagreements. People he owed money to, or who owed him. He didn't talk much about it, not to me. I was just his nephew, not his confidant. Poirot leaned closer, his voice low. And yet, you know more than you say. Your debts, Monsieur, they weigh heavily. A fortune would solve many problems. You think I'd steal from my own aunt? I'm no saint, but I'm not a thief. He stood abruptly, knocking over a chair, and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Hastings raised an eyebrow. He's rattled, Poirot's rattled. If you ask me, Poirot said, his eyes narrowing. He runs from the truth, but whether it is guilt or fear, we shall see. The morning brought a new lead, a response from Inspector Japp, confirming that Henry Duval was known in certain circles as a broker of stolen artifacts, with ties to a smuggling ring operating out of Dover. The telegram's mention of a buyer suggested a transaction was imminent, but Japp had no record of a Tom linked to Duval. Clara's brother remained a ghost. His role unclear. Poirot decided to confront Clara again, seeking clarity on her midnight meeting. They found her in the kitchen, peeling potatoes with a mechanical rhythm, her face drawn. Mademoiselle Clara, Poirot began, his tone gentle but firm. Your brother, Tom, he spoke of a blue jewel. What is his business, and why meet in secret? Clara's knife slipped, nicking her finger. She winced, wrapping it in her apron. I told you, sir, he's in trouble. Tits, like Mr. Charles. He came to me for help, not to steal. I don't know nothing about a jewel. And yet, Poirot said, you heard him speak of it. Where is he now, this brother of yours? I don't know, she whispered, her eyes darting to the door. He said he'd be in Dover, looking for work. That's all I know. Dover, Poirot repeated, his mind connecting the dots. It's the same Dover where Monsieur Duval's buyer waits. It's a coincidence, perhaps, but Poirot does not believe in coincidences. As noon approached, Poirot and Hastings returned to the Caspre-Taya way. Today, I just know it's gonna be a really good day, because I'm gonna start out by going to Starbucks. No, a coincidence, a a secland, listens, perhaps, my cement, L, mellow, L, my, C, C, L, 1, and then I'm at S, I, library, where the diary lay open on a table. Poirot pored over its entries, deciphering coded references to shipments and meetings. One passage caught his eye. The cliffs at Whitehaven hide the vault. The blue key unlocks it, but beware the serpent's bite. The mention of a serpent echoed the cufflink found in the study, its engraving a silent clue to the thief's identity. Hastings, Poirot said, we must visit these cliffs. Whitehaven is not fair a coastal village, known for its smugglers. Coves, the fortune is there, and, perhaps, the brooch. But before they could plan their journey, a commotion erupted in the hall. Charles Ashburn, his coat half on, was shoving past the butler. Reginald, his face flushed with panic. I'm leaving, he shouted. I won't stay here to be accused. Poirot stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. Monsieur. Charles, to flee is to confess. Where do you go in such haste? Charles froze, his eyes wild. Anywhere but here. You're hounding me, Poirot. I didn't take the brooch, but you won't believe me. Then stay, Poirot said, his tone commanding. Prove your innocence, or do you fear what the diary reveals? Charles's shoulders sagged, but he shook his head. I'm done with this. He pushed past, disappearing into the drive, where a car waited, its engine rumbling. Hastings started after him, but Poirot held up a hand. Let him go, mon ami. His flight is a clue in itself. We follow, but not yet. First, we prepare. That afternoon, Poirot enlisted Lady Eleanor's help to secure a car and a map of Whitehaven. She listened, her face pale, as he explained the diary's revelations. A fortune, she whispered. Reginald never told me. He said the brooch was sentimental, nothing more. Sentimental, oui, Poirot said, but also strategic. Your husband played a dangerous game, madame. We must find this vault before the thief does. As they planned, a telegram arrived from the chemist analyzing the vial from the passage. Its contents were traces of chloroform sedative, confirming Poirot's suspicion of foul play. The thief had planned not just to steal, but to ensure silence, perhaps by incapacitating a witness. Poirot's resolve hardened. Hastings, we go to Whitehaven tonight. Charles's flight, Duval's buyer, Clara's brother, all roads lead to the coast. The sapphire is the key, and Poirot will turn it. As dusk fell, they prepared to depart, the diary tucked safely in Poirot's satchel. The house buzzed with unease, the guests whispering, the servants avoiding his gaze. Poirot stood by the window, the cliffs of Whitehaven vivid in his mind. The game was shifting, the stakes rising, and Hercule Poirot was ready to meet the challenge head-on. Chapter 7. Pursued to the docks, the fog rolled in from the sea, cloaking the narrow roads that wound toward Whitehaven in a ghostly shroud. Hercule Poirot, seated in the passenger seat of a hired Daimler, adjusted his scarf against the damp chill, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the cliffs loomed like silent sentinels. The revelations from Lord Reginald's diary that the sapphire brooch was a blue key, to a hidden fortune in the cliffs had propelled him into action. Charles Ashburn's sudden flight from the estate, coupled with Henry Duval's coded telegram about a buyer in Dover and Clara's mysterious brother, Tom, had woven a tapestry of intrigue that pointed to the coast. The chloroform vial, the serpent-engraved cufflink, the cryptic note, the sapphire hides where eyes cannot see were pieces of a puzzle, and Poirot's little gray cells burned with the need to fit them together. Captain Hastings, gripping the steering wheel, glanced at Poirot. "I say, Poirot, chasing Charles through this fog feels like a wild goose chase. Are you sure he's headed to Whitehaven?" "Certain, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice steady despite the jolting road. "Charles's flight is no mere panic. He knows something of the fortune, perhaps from his uncle's confidences. His debts make him desperate, and desperation leads to the docks, where secrets are bought and sold." Their destination was Whitehaven's dockside, a gritty maze of warehouses and taverns where smugglers and sailors mingled under the cover of night. Poirot had learned from Inspector Japp that Charles had been spotted boarding a train to the coast, his suitcase clutched like a lifeline. The diary's mention of a consortium and a serpent's bite suggested a network of conspirators, and Poirot suspected Charles was either running from them to them. The Daimler rolled into Whitehaven as midnight approached, a Taya fog thickening to a pea-soup haze. The docks were alive with the creak of ships and the low murmur of voices. Poirot directed Hastings to a tavern called the Rusty Anchor, its windows glowing faintly through the mist. "Here, Hastings," he said, "is where men like Charles seek refuge or allies." They entered the tavern, a dimly lit den of tobacco smoke and sour ale. Rough-looking men hunched over tables, their eyes narrowing at the sight of Poirot's impeccable suit and Hastings's upright posture. Poirot's gaze swept the room, landing on a corner table where Charles sat, his back to the wall, speaking in hushed tones to a burly man with a scarred face and a sailor's cap. "Tiens," Poirot whispered, pulling Hastings behind a pillar. "Our quarry is not alone. Observe, but do not act." Charles's voice, strained and urgent, carried faintly. "You don't understand, Malone. The brooch is the key. Without it, the vault's useless. I need your help to find it." Malone, the scarred man, leaned forward, his voice a low growl. "You're in deep, Ashburn. The consortium don't like loose ends. You've got the key, or you're out." Poirot's eyes gleamed. The key was a sapphire, confirming the diary's cryptic hints. But before he could eavesdrop further, Charles glanced up, his eyes locking onto Poirot's silhouette. Panic seized him. He shoved back his chair, knocking over a glass, and bolted for a side door. After him, Hastings cried, but Poirot moved swiftly, cutting through the crowd with surprising agility for a man of his stature. They burst into an alley, the fog swallowing Charles's figure as he sprinted toward the docks. Poirot, undeterred, followed. The sound of his footsteps, Hastings, close behind. The chase led to a pier where fishing boats bobbed in the inky water. Charles stumbled, his suitcase falling open, spilling papers and a glint of metal. Poirot pounced, pinning the item with his Cana brass key, engraved with a serpent identical to the cufflink's design. "Monsieur Charles," Poirot said, his voice calm but commanding, "your flight ends here. Explain this key in your meeting with this Malone." Charles, panting, collapsed against a crate. "It's not what you think, Poirot. I didn't steal the brooch. That kit's from Uncle Reginald. He gave it to me years ago. Said it was for safekeeping. I didn't know what it meant until I heard about the diary." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Huh. And yet, you meet a smuggler in a tavern, speaking of a vault. You are not innocent, monsieur." "I'm trying to fix things," Charles pleaded. "My debts, they're two dangerous people. Malone's part of the consortium Uncle Reginald dealt with. They want the brooch, and I thought, if I could find it, I could pay them off." Hastings frowned. "You're in bed with smugglers? That's low, even for you. I had no choice. Charles snapped. Uncle Reginald's dealings left me in their sights. The key is supposed to open something at Whitehaven, but without the brooch, it's useless. Poirot pocketed the key, his mind racing. This consortium. Monsieur, who are they? And where's the brooch now? I don't know, Charles said, his voice breaking. Malone said, someone else took it. Someone inside the house. I was trying to find out who. Poirot studied him, weighing his desperation against his story. You will return with us to Ashburn Hall. Your flight has only deepened your guilt. But Poirot will uncover the truth. They escorted Charles back to the car. His shoulders slumped in defeat. As Hastings drove through the fog, Poirot examined the key, its serpent engraving a chilling echo of the cufflink. A T. Simmed was a network of smugglers tied to Lord Reginald's past, and the sapphire brooch was their prize. But who had beaten them to the theft? Clara's brother Tom, perhaps, or Henry Duval, whose Dover buyer loomed large in Poirot's suspicions. Back at Ashburn Hall, dawn was breaking, the estate stirring with uneasy murmurs. Lady Eleanor met them in the hall, her face pale. Monsieur Poirot, you found Charles? See, he is safe, Madame Poirot said, guiding Charles to a chair. But he has much to explain. The brooch, it is the key to a vault hidden in the cliffs of Whitehaven. Your husband's diary confirms this. Did you know of his dealings with smugglers? Lady Eleanor's hand flew to her throat. Smugglers. Reginald dealt with merchants, yes, but he never spoke of criminals. The brooch was his pride, not some tool for illicit gains. Yet it is so, Poirot said, and Charles, he is entangled in this web. We must now watch Henry Duval closely, for his buyer in Dover awaits the prize. Charles, overhearing, looked up, his voice hoarse. I swear, I didn't take it. But Malone, he mentioned a woman, someone at the house, working with them. Poirot's eyes narrowed. A woman, Bettina Namer. No, Charles said. He just said she was close to the heart of the house. Hastings frowned. Clara or Beatrice Lyle? For another, Poirot said. We return to the diary, and we watch. The serpent's bite, it seems, is closer than we thought. That morning, Poirot retreated to the study, spreading the diary's pages before him. Entries detailed shipments to Dover, coded names, and warnings of betrayal. One passage stood out. The serpent guards the vault, but its bite is treachery. J.V. cannot be trusted. J.V. Could it be Henry Duval, masquerading as Dubois? Crow summoned Clara, whose nervous demeanor had not abated. Mademoiselle, he said, your brother Tom where in Dover does he hide? Clara's eyes widened. I don't know, sir. He moves around. He's not a bad man, just desperate. Desperate men do desperate things, Poirot said. If you hear from him, you will tell Poirot. The truth, mademoiselle, is your only shield. As Clara left, Poirot turned to Hastings. We prepare for Dover, mon ami. The buyer awaits, and the brooch is near. But first, we secure Charles. His knowledge of the key makes him a target. The fog of Whitehaven lingered in Poirot's mind, a metaphor for the mystery itself, elusive but not impenetrable, with the serpent key in hand and the diary's secrets unfolding. Hercule Poirot was one step closer to unmasking the thief and claiming the sapphire's truth. Chapter 8. The Smuggler's Lair. Tamed of the sea hung heavy in the air as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings stepped from their Daimler onto the cobbled streets of Whitehaven. The fog had lifted, revealing a jagged coastline where cliffs loomed over churning waves. The serpent-engraved key, retrieved from Charles Ashburn's spilled suitcase in a frantic chase at the docks, weighed heavily in Poirot's pocket, a tangible link to the sapphire brooch and the hidden fortune, described in Lord Reginald's diary. Charles's panicked flight and his meeting with Malone, scarred smuggler tied to a shadowy consortium, had confirmed the brooch's role as a blue key to a vault concealed in the cliffs. The coded telegram from Henry Duval, the false diplomat, pointed to a buyer in Dover, while Clara's brother Tom remained a specter in the shadows, his mention of a blue jewel echoing ominously. Poirot's little gray cells thrummed with purpose. The smuggler's lair awaited, and with it, answers. Hastings adjusted his hat, his eyes scanning the bustling docks. Poirot, this place gives me the creeps. Smugglers, faults, secret keys fills. Like we're in one of those adventure novels Beatrice Lyle might read. Non, mon, ami, Poirot replied, his voice a velvet hum against the cries of gulls. This is no novel, but a game of chess, and our opponent plays with cunning. The key, it unlocks more than a vault, it unlocks the truth. We must find Malone's lair before Charles's consortium moves the brooch beyond our reach. Their destination was a warehouse district, a labyrinth of salt-stained buildings where crates and barrels were stacked like sentinels. Poirot had gleaned from Charles's frantic confession that Malone operated from a warehouse marked with a serpent symbol, a match for the key's engraving. The diary's cryptic warning, the serpent guards the vault, but its bite is treachery, echoed in Poirot's mind, urging caution. They navigated narrow alleys, the air thick with the scent of tar and fish. Poirot's impeccable suit drew curious glances from dock workers, but his purposeful stride deterred questions. At last, they reached a weathered warehouse, its door bearing a faded serpent carved into the wood. The lock was old but sturdy, and Poirot produced the serpent key, its fit perfect as it turned with a satisfying click. Tins, Poirot murmured, his eyes gleaming. The serpent welcomes us, but we must tread lightly. The warehouse was a cavern of shadows, lit only by slivers of light piercing cracked windows. Crates loomed like monoliths, labeled with cryptic codes J, V, MC, L, T, the same initials from Lord Reginald's diary. Poirot's torch swept the space, revealing a cluttered desk strewn with papers, a half-burned map, and a ledger marked with the serpent symbol. Hastings peered over his shoulder. Looks like a smuggler's headquarters. All right, the coast initials. J.V.B. Duval. Perhaps, Poirot said, opening the ledger. Its pages detailed shipments of artifacts, jewels, statues, manuscripts smuggled through Dover to buyers across Europe. One entry caught his eye. Blue Key, Ashburn Estate. Secured. Buyer confirmed, Dover 18th. The date matched Duval's telegram, tightening the web around the false diplomat. As Poirot studied the ledger, a soft rustle came from the shadows. He froze, signaling Hastings to silence. A figure emerged, cloaked in a dark shawl, their face obscured. Poirot's heart quickened, but before he could speak, the figure spoke, her voice low and familiar. Monsieur Poirot, what are you doing here? It was Clara, her eyes wide with fear, clutching a small bundle. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Mademoiselle. Clara, you follow us to a smuggler's den? Explain yourself, see if you plot. Clara's hands trembled, the bundle slipping to reveal a worn journal, not unlike Lord Reginald's diary. I came to find Tom. He's mixed up with these people, the consortium. I followed you, hoping you'd lead me to him. I didn't know this was their place. Poirot's mustache twitched. And yet, you are here, in a warehouse marked by the serpent. Your brother, he speaks of a blue jewel. What do you know of this place? Clara's voice broke. I swear, I only wanted to help Tom. He's in debt to Malone. Bad debt. He said something about a vault, but I thought he was boasting. This journalist's hiss. I found it in his things when he visited last. Poirot took the journal, its pages filled with frantic scrawl notes about debts. A blue key and a meeting at Whitehaven's cliffs. One entry read, Malone, says the woman has it. She's closer than we think. The echo of Charles's words, Malone's mention of a woman close to the heart of the house, sent a chill through Poirot. You knew of this warehouse, mademoiselle? Poirot asked, his tone gentle but probing. Clara shook her head. Not exactly. Tom mentioned a place by the docks, said it was where the consortium worked. I came to find him, to make him stop. Hastings frowned. You're awfully familiar with this place for someone who just stumbled in. Clara, I'm not lying, she cried. I saw the serpent on the door, like the one Tom drew in his journal. I thought he might be here. Poirot studied her, weighing her fear against her story. Very well, he said. You will return with us to Ashburn Hall, but this journal, it stays with Poirot. As Clara nodded, her eyes brimming with tears, Poirot's torch caught a glint. In the corner a crate, its lid ajar, revealing a folded map. He retrieved it, unfolding a detailed chart of Whitehaven's cliffs, marked with a red X at a coastal cave. The words Vault of the Serpent were scrawled beside it, in the same hand as the diary. Mon Dieu, Poirot breathed. The welt is real, and it is near. Hastings, we must visit this cave, but with caution. The consortium watches. They escorted Clara back to the Daimler, her silence heavy with dread. As Hastings drove, Poirot studied the map, its lines tracing a path to a secluded cove. The serpent key, the diary, and now the map formed a clear trail. But the woman mentioned by Malone and Tom loomed large. Was it Clara, playing a deeper game? Or Beatrice Lyle, whose hairpin had been found in the passage? Or another, yet unseen? Back at Ashburn Hall, Poirot secured Clara in the care of the butler, Reginald, with strict instructions to keep her under watch. He then gathered Lady Eleanor in the drawing room, showing her the map. Madame, he said, the fortune your husband hid is in a cave at Whitehaven. The brooch is its key. Did he ever speak of such a place? Lady Eleanor's face paled, her hands clutching her shawl. A cave? No, never. Reginald was secretive, but he loved the cliffs. He'd walked there, sketching, but he never mentioned a vault. Poirot nodded, his mind cataloging her reaction. We go to the cave tonight, Madame, but first we must ensure no one follows. To prevent interference, Poirot devised a subtle plan. He planted a false rumor among the guests via a whispered conversation with Hastings loud enough to be overheard. That he was returning to London to consult Scotland Yard. The bait set. He and Hastings slipped out under cover of dusk, the map and key in hand. The cliffs of Whitehaven were a jagged silhouette against the twilight, the sea crashing below. Poirot and Hastings descended a narrow path to the cove, the map guiding them to a cave hidden behind a curtain of vines. The serpent key fit a rusted lock embedded in the rock, revealing a tunnel that stretched into darkness. Inside, the air was damp, the walls carved with serpent motifs. Poirot's torch illuminated a steel door, its lock matching the key's design, but as he reached for it, a shadow moved behind them. Clara, her shawl gone, her face resolute. I followed you, she said, her voice steady. I had to. Tom's in there, I know it. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Mademoiselle, your persistence is admirable, but dangerous. Why are you truly here? Before she could answer, a low rumble echoed the rockfall, blocking the tunnel's entrance. Clara gasped, and Hastings cursed, but Poirot remained calm. The serpent's bite, he said. Someone wishes us trapped, but Poirot is not so. Is leak-caged. Using his tools, he opened the steel door, revealing a chamber stacked with Crate's artifacts. Gold and papers, the fortune of Lord Reginald's smuggling empire. But the brooch was nowhere in sight. Clara's eyes darted to a corner, where a faint trail of mud led to a hidden exit. She was here, Clara whispered. The woman Malone spoke of. I saw her tracks when I followed you. Poirot nodded, his resolve unbroken. We escape, and we find her. The game, it continues. They navigated the hidden exit, emerging into the night. The sea's roar, a reminder of the stakes. Poirot clutched the map, the key, and Clara's journal, his mind alight with the certainty that the sapphire and its thief were closer than ever. Chapter 9. The caves riddled. The salt-laden wind howled across the Whitehaven cliffs, whipping at Hercule Poirot's overcoat as he emerged from the hidden tunnel, his gloved hands clutching the serpentine-engraved key and the smuggler's map. The cave they had just escaped, its entrance sealed by a calculated rockfall, had revealed a chamber of Lord Reginald Ashburn's illicit fortune crates of gold, artifacts, and papers, but the sapphire brooch, the blue key to this treasure, remained elusive. Clara, the maid, had followed them into the cave, claiming to seek her brother Tom, yet her presence in the muddy tracks she pointed out suggested a deeper involvement. The diary's warnings, Henry Duval's coded telegram, and Charles Ashburn's desperate meeting with the smuggler Malone painted a conspiracy that stretched from Ashburn Hall to the Dover docks. Poirot's little gray cells thrummed with the thrill of the chase, but the rockfaller deliberate trap meant the thief was watching, and the game was growing perilous. Captain Hastings, his face flushed from their narrow escape, brushed dirt from his coat. Poirot, that rockfall was no accident. Someone wanted us trapped, maybe dead. Clara, how did you know about that hidden exit? Clara, her shawl torn and her eyes wide, clutched her brother's journal. I didn't, sir. I swear, I saw the tracks leading to it, same as you. I only followed because I thought Tom might be here, mixed up with Malone's lot. Poirot's gaze was piercing, his mustache a steel crescent in the moonlight. Mademoiselle Clara, your devotion to your brother is admirable, but your presence in a smuggler's vault raises questions. The tracks, you saw describe them, small, like a woman's boots, she said, her voice trembling. Fresh mud leading to that exit. I thought, maybe it was the woman Malone mentioned. The one close to the heart of the house. Poirot nodded, his mind cataloging the clue. The diary's reference to a serpent's bite and the consortium's treachery echoed in his thoughts, intertwined with the mysterious woman. Was it Beatrice Lyle, whose hairpin had been found in the passage, or another, hidden in plain sight? The cave steel door, opened by the serpent key, had revealed wealth, but no brooch. A new clue was needed, and Poirot sensed it lay within. The vault itself. They retraced their steps to the cave's entrance, now blocked by rubble. Poirot's torch swept the cliff face, revealing a narrow ledge leading to the hidden exit, a precarious path over the crashing waves below. Hastings, he said, we return to the chamber. Okay. The vault holds more secrets, and Poirot will not be deterred by a few stones. With Clara in tow, they navigated the ledge, re-entering the chamber through the hidden exit. The air was damp, the serpent motifs on the walls glinting ominously. Poirot approached the crate, its lid marked with the initials J. V. Possibly Henry Duval, the false diplomat. Inside, he found papers detailing smuggling routes, but nestled among them was a small, locked chest, its surface engraved with a riddle. The sapphire's twin guards the way. Mon Dieu, Poirot breathed, his eyes alight. A riddle within a riddle. The sapphire's twin, what could it be? Hastings frowned, peering at the chest. Another jewel, maybe, or something paired with the brooch. Clara, hovering nervously, spoke up. Lady Eleanor has another sapphire, doesn't she? A smaller one, in her jewelry box. She showed it to me once, said it was a gift from Lord Reginald, but not as precious as the brooch. Poirot's mustache twitched, a spark of realization igniting. Prissing meant the twin, a second sapphire, perhaps a decoy, or a companion. We must return to Ashburn Hall at once. The journey back was tense, the damless headlights cutting through the pre-dawn mist. Clara sat in the back, silent but watchful, her journal clutched like a talisman. Poirot, lost in thought, pieced together the clues, the brooch, the key, the vault, and now the riddle. The woman mentioned by Malone and Tom loomed large, her identity a shadow just out of reach. Beatrice Lyle's hairpin, Clara's evasiveness, and Duval's buyer in Dover formed a constellation of deceit. And the second sapphire was the star to guide him at Ashburn Hall. Dawn painted the estate in soft golds, but the air was thick with suspicion. Lady Eleanor met them in the drawing room, her face etched with worry. "Monsieur Poirot, you were gone all night. Kay, have you found the brooch?" "Not yet, madame," Poirot said, his tone measured. "But we have found a vault, as your husband's diary promised. The brooch is its key, but another sapphire, its twin, is needed to unlock a chest within. Tell me, do you have such a jewel?" Lady Eleanor's eyes widened. "Yes, a smaller sapphire, set in a pendant. Reginald gave it to me years ago, said it was a companion to the brooch. I keep it in my jewelry box, in my bedroom." "Fetch it, s'il vous plaît," Poirot said, "and guard it closely. The thief may strike again." As Lady Eleanor hurried upstairs, Poirot turned to Clara. "Mademoiselle, remain here. Your knowledge of the house and your brother makes you valuable and vulnerable." Clara nodded, her hands twisting her apron. Hastings whispered, "Do you trust her, Poirot? She's been everywhere too convenient, if you ask me." "Trust. It's earned, Hastings," Poirot replied. "But for now, she is our guide to Tom. We watch, and we learn." Lady Eleanor returned, clutching a velvet box. Inside gleamed a sapphire pendant, smaller than the brooch, but cut with the same brilliance. "This is it," she said. "Will it help find the brooch?" "Oui," Poirot said, taking the pendant. "We return to the cave, but first we secure the house. The thief is near, and they know we are close." With the pendant in hand, Poirot and Hastings prepared to return to Whitehaven, but a new urgency gripped him. The rockfall suggested the thief or their allies were monitoring their moves. To outwit them, Poirot devised a ruse. He instructed the butler, Reginald, to spread word that he and Hastings were staying at the hall to question the guests, while in truth they slipped out through a servant's entrance, for Daimler waiting, in a hidden grove. The cave was, as they left it, the steel door ajar. Poirot inserted the sapphire pendant into a slot beside the chest's lock, and with a soft click, it opened, revealing a bundle of documents, deeds, maps, and a list of names, including JV and MC, tied to a smuggling ring that stretched across Europe. A note in Lord Reginald's hand read, "The blue key unlocks the vault, but the twin reveals the truth. Trust no one." Poirot's pulse quickened. "The truth, Hastings, it is here. The brooch opens the vault, but the pendant reveals the consortium's secrets. The thief seeks both." As they studied the documents, a faint sound echoed a boot. Scuffing stone. Poirot spun, his torch catching a glimpse of a figure retreating through the hidden exit. "After them, Poirot," he cried, but the figure was swift, vanishing into the cliffs. Back at the car, Poirot's mind raced. The documents confirmed the consortium's reach, but the woman's track small, deliberate, pointed to a mastermind within the house. Clara's claim of innocence was fraying, and Beatrice Lyle's hairpin loomed large. But a new suspicion stirred. Mrs. Lavinia Gray, whose sharp eyes missed nothing, had been too quiet to test his theory. Poirot planted a Tricora small, discreet device from his investigative kitten, Clara Shaw, hoping she would lead him to Tom or the mysterious woman. As they drove back, he received a telegram from Jap. Tom was known in Dover, a low-level smuggler with debts to Malone. More alarming, Jap's sources hinted at a meeting that night, involving Duval and a woman. "Tiens," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "The net tightens. Clara or another will lead us to the truth. We follow her, Hastings, and we find the brooch. As night fell, the tracker revealed Clara slipping out, heading toward an inn near Dover. Poirot and Hastings followed. The cliffs and the caves riddle burning in their minds. The sapphire brooch was near, and Hercule Poirot was ready to unmask its thief. Chapter 10. The Double-Crossed. Night air was thick with the scent of salt and intrigue as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings crouched behind a gnarled oak near the Seagull Inn, a ramshackle establishment on the outskirts of Dover. The tracker, planted in Clara's shawl, had led them here, its faint signal pulsing like a heartbeat in Poirot's pocket. The revelations from the Whitehaven cave, the sapphire pendant, unlocking a chest of documents, detailing Lord Reginald Ashburn's smuggling empire, the riddle of the sapphire's twin, and the muddy tracks of a mysterious woman had tightened the web around the stolen sapphire brooch. Clara's claim of seeking her brother Tom, Henry Duval's coded telegram about a buyer in Dover, and Charles Ashburn's panicked dealings with the smuggler Malone pointed to a conspiracy teetering on the edge of exposure. The diary's warning of a serpent's bite and a woman close to the heart of the house gnawed at Poirot's mind, urging him to act swiftly. Tonight, at this inn, he would confront the shadows and uncover the truth. Hastings, his breath visible in the chilly air, whispered Poirot, "Are you sure about this? Clara could be leading us into a trap." "That rockfall in the cave wasn't an accident, precisement, mon ami," Poirot replied, his green eyes glinting in the moonlight. "The trap proves we are close. Clara, or someone she protects, holds the key to the brooch. We observe, we listen, and we strike when the moment is ripe." The inn's windows glowed faintly, casting a patchwork of light on the cobbled path. Through a grimy pane, Poirot glimpsed Clara, her shawl discarded, speaking urgently to a figure in a dark coat. Henry Duval, his polished demeanor replaced by a tense alertness. The sight confirmed Poirot's suspicions. Clara's midnight rendezvous in the woods with her brother Tom was no isolated act. She was entangled, willingly or not, in the consortium's web. Poirot motioned for Hastings to follow, and they slipped closer, hiding behind a stack of barrels near the inn's back entrance. The door was ajar, and Clara's voice carried, sharp, with desperation. "You promised, Henry. You said you'd help Tom, not use him. Where's the brooch?" "I did what you asked." Duval's reply was smooth, almost mocking. "Patience, ma chère. The brooch is safe, and your brother will be free once the buyer pays. You've played your part, well distracting the household, planting the hairpin. But don't ask questions you won't like the answers to." Poirot's mustache twitched, his mind racing. Clara, then, was complicit, but under duress. The hairpin, matching Beatrice Lyle's, was a deliberate misdirection, and Duval's confidence suggested he held the upper hand. But the mention of a buyer meant the brooch was still in play, not yet gone. Hastings leaned in, his voice a hiss. "She's working with him. But why plant Beatrice's hairpin? To confuse?" Poirot murmured. "Duval is clever, but not the mastermind. There is another, pulling the strings. We must act before the brooch leaves these shores." I crept inside the inn's interior, a maze of creaking floorboards and flickering lamps. The tap room was nearly empty, save for a few sailors nursing pints. Poirot led Hastings to a narrow staircase, following the sound of Clara and Duval's voices to a private room on the second floor. Through a keyhole, Poirot saw Clara pacing, her hands wringing, while Duval lounged against a table, a glass of wine in hand. "You don't understand," Clara said, her voice breaking. "I stole the brooch for you, to save Tom. I used the passage, just like you told me. But Lady Eleanor, she's been kind to me. I can't let you sell it." Duval's smile was cold. "You're in too deep, Clara. The consortium doesn't forgive betrayal. The brooch goes to my buyer tonight, and Tom's debts are cleared. Cross me, and he pays the price. Poirot's heart quickened. Clara was the thief, coerced by Duval to protect her brother. But her remorse suggested a chance to turn her. Signaled to Hastings, and they burst into the room. Applause. Cane raised like a scepter. Monsieur Duval, Mademoiselle Clara, he said, his voice commanding. The game is over. The brooch. It belongs to Lady Eleanor, and Poirot will see it returned. Clara gasped, her hands flying to her mouth, while Duval's wineglass shattered on the floor. Poirot, he spat, his charm evaporating. Meddling in affairs beyond your ken. Nan, Poirot said, stepping closer. I meddle in justice. Clara, you stole the brooch. But you acted under duress. Tell me where it is, and Poirot will protect you. Clara's eyes brimmed with tears. I hid it in the passage, in the hollow behind the alcove. I took it to save Tom, but I couldn't let Henry sell it. I was going to return it, I swear. Duval lunged for the door, but Hastings was faster, grabbing his arm. A scuffle ensued, Duval's wiry strength surprising as he broke free, shoving Clara aside and bolting down the stairs. Poirot, undeterred, turned to Clara. Mademoiselle, you will lead us to the brooch. Now, Clara nodded, trembling, and they hurried back to Ashburn Hall, the night a blur of urgency. The passage behind the study's bookshelf was as damp and shadowy as before, but Clara moved with purpose, kneeling in the alcove to pry open a loose stone. Inside gleamed the sapphire brooch, its facets catching the torchlight like a captive star. Monsieur Poirot breathed, lifting it carefully. The blue key, safe at last. But Duval he escapes, and with him the truth of the consortium. Hastings frowned. We can't let him get away, Poirot. He's headed for Dover, to his buyer. Poirot said, pocketing the brooch. But first, we secure Clara. She is our witness, and our brother, Tom, is our next lead. Back at the hall, Poirot summoned Lady Eleanor, presenting the brooch with a flourish. Madame, your treasure is returned, thanks to Mademoiselle Clara's confession. But the danger is not past. Duval seeks to sell it abroad, and a consortium watches. Lady Eleanor clutched the brooch, her eyes glistening. Clara, she stole it. But why? For her brother, Poirot said. Coerced by Henry Duval, a broker of stolen goods. We must now find him, and the woman he serves, for I believe he answers to another. Clara, under the butler's watch, recounted her story. Duval had approached her months ago, exploiting Tom's debts to Malone's consortium. She had used her knowledge of the passage, gained from years of service, to steal the brooch, planting Beatrice's hairpin to deflect suspicion. But guilt had driven her to hide it, hoping to return it before Duval could act. Poirot listened, his mind piecing together the puzzle. The woman mentioned by Malone and Tom, close to the heart of the house, was not Clarucci, was too peripheral. Beatrice Lau's hairpin was a red herring, but Mrs. Lavinia Gray's quiet observance nagged at him. Her sharp eyes and cryptic comments hinted at knowledge beyond her claims. To test his theory, Poirot questioned the guests again, focusing on Gray. In the conservatory, her knitting needles clicked rhythmically as she met his gaze. Monsieur Poirot, you found the brooch. How clever. I suppose Clara's to blame. Perhaps, Poirot said, his tone neutral. Got you, madame. See much? Did you know of Lord Reginald's smuggling ventures? Gray's needles paused. I knew he was a rogue in his way. Men like that always have secrets. But smuggling, it's a young man's game, not mine. Her deflection was too smooth, and Poirot filed it away. As he prepared to pursue Duval, a telegram from Jap arrived. Duval had been spotted at Dover's docks, boarding a ship. The buyer was waiting, and time was short. Poirot turned to Hastings. We go to Dover, mon ami. But first, we secure the brooch, and Clara's journal. It contains names. Perhaps the consortiums, the double cross is revealed, but the mastermind remains. As they left for Dover, the brooch safe in Poirot's satchel, the night pulsed with danger. Clara's confession had cracked the case, but Duval's escape in the shadow of the consortium loomed large. Hercule Poirot, his resolve unshaken, was ready to face the serpent's bite and claim the final truth. Chapter 11. Decoding the Ledger. The first light of dawn crept over the Dover horizon, painting the restless sea in hues of amber and steel. Hercule Poirot stood in the study of Ashburn Hall, his gloved hands carefully turning the pages of the coded ledger retrieved from Clara's journal during the confrontation at the Seagull Inn. The sapphire brooch, the blue key to Lord Reginald Ashburn's hidden fortune, safely returned to Lady Eleanor, thanks to Clara's confession under duress from Henry Duval, the false diplomat. Yet Duval's escape into the night and the looming threat of a smuggling consortium kept Poirot's little gray cells in a fever of activity. The ledger, filled with cryptic entries, promised to unravel the network behind the theft, the network that included a mysterious woman close to the heart of the house, as hinted by the smuggler Malone and Clara's brother Tom. The serpent-engraved key, the hairpin, the chloroform vial, and the diary's warnings of a serpent's bite were pieces of a puzzle, and Poirot was determined to fit them together before the consortium struck again. Captain Hastings, nursing a bruise from the scuffle with Duval, leaned against the study's oak desk, his eyes bleary but alert. Poirot, that ledger looks like gibberish to me. Codes, numbers, initials. How do you make sense of it? And what about Duval? It's probably halfway to France by now. Patience, mon ami, Poirot replied, his voice a soft cadence, his mustache twitching with focus. The ledger is a map of treachery, written in the language of the cunning. Duval may flee, but he leaves a trail. This booklet names his allies, his buyers, and perhaps the mastermind who pulls the strings. We decoded, and we find the heart of the conspiracy. Poirot spread the ledger open, its pages dense with abbreviations and dates. One entry caught his eye. JV, to deliver blue key to MC. Dover, 18th. Payment secured. LT, overseas. The initials matched those in Lord Reginald's diary, and the date tomorrow lined with Duval's telegram. Another entry read, Serpent's agent within. Trust only the shadow. The reference to a serpent's agent echoed the cufflink and key, pointing to someone embedded in the household. Hastings, Poirot said. This serpent's agent is our woman, the one Malone and Tom spoke of. She is not Claire. Her role was coerced. Nor Beatrice Lyle, whose hairpin was a diversion. We must look closer to someone overlooked. Hastings frowned. Mrs. Gray. She's sharp, but she's been on the sidelines. Or the butler, Reginald. He's been awfully quiet. Poirot's eyes gleamed precisement. Reginald, the butler, moves unseen, hears all, and speaks little. His calm is a mask. We investigate his quarters, but first we crack this code, using a cipher technique from his days with the Belgian police. Poirot analyzed the ledger's patterns, substituting letters and numbers based on shipping codes Lord Reginald had used. After hours of meticulous work, the entries began to yield. JV was indeed Henry Duval, MC was likely Malone, and LT remained unknown, possibly the mastermind. The ledger detailed a shipment of artifacts with a sapphire brooch as the centerpiece, set to be exchanged in Dover for a fortune in gold dot. As Poirot deciphered, a knock interrupted them. Lady Eleanor entered, her face pale but resolute, clutching the sapphire brooch. Monsieur Poirot, I've kept this safe, as you asked. Have you found who orchestrated this betrayal? Progress? Madame Poirot said, gesturing to the ledger. This book names the players in your husband's smuggling ring, but one name eludes us, the serpent's agent within your house. Tell me, what do you know of your butler, Reginald? Lady Eleanor's brow furrowed. Reginald, been with us for years, loyal to a fault. He served my husband faithfully, managing the household during difficult times. Difficult times, Poirot repeated, his tone probing. Your husband's ventures, did Reginald know of their less savory aspects? She hesitated, her fingers tightening on the brooch. Reginald handled correspondence, sometimes sensitive matters, but smuggling. I can't believe he'd betray us. Poirot nodded, his mind cataloging her trust. We shall see, madame. For now, guard the brooch. The consortium plans a deal tomorrow night, and we must be ready. With Lady Eleanor's permission, Poirot and Hastings searched Reginald's quarters, a sparse room in the servants' wing, its walls bare save for a single photograph of a younger Reginald with Lord Reginald, both smiling on a ship's deck. The room was orderly, almost too perfect, but a locked drawer in the desk caught Poirot's eye. Using a hairpin from his investigative kit, he opened it, revealing a burner phone and a stack of letters, all addressed to R.T. Hastings. Poirot said, holding up the phone. This is no tool of a simple butler. Keen, these letters are T. Not L.T., but close enough to raise suspicion. The phone's messages were brief but damning. Blue key secured. Wait JV's move. Another read. MC, impatient. Ensure delivery, or the serpent strikes. The letters, in a different hand, detail payments to a Dover account. Signed with a serpent symbol. Reginald's, our man, Hastings said, his voice low. He's been playing us all along, right under our noses. Not so fast, mon ami, Poirot cautioned. He's a player, but the mastermind. The ledger suggests another LT, who oversees. We confront Reginald, but with care. They found the butler in the pantry, polishing silver with mechanical precision. Hayes' gray eyes flicked up, betraying no surprise. Monsieur Poirot, Captain. Hastings, how may I serve you? Poirot held up the phone, his gaze unyielding. You serve the serpent, Monsieur Reginald. This phone, these letters, they tie you to the consortium. You knew of Lord Reginald's smuggling, did you not? The butler's hands stilled, his face a mask of calm. I served my lord faithfully, sir. His business was his own. Okay, merely followed orders. In these orders, Poirot pressed, included betraying Lady Eleanor. The brooch, the vulture rule, was to ensure their delivery. Reginald's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Poirot continued, the ledger. Names you, or one close to you. Speak, monsieur, or Poirot will speak to Scotland Yard. A flicker of fear crossed Reginald's face, but he shook his head. I know nothing of a ledger, sir. I am a butler, nothing more. Poirot dismissed him, his mind racing. He lies Hastings, but he is not the head of the serpent. We prepare for Dover, for the deal tomorrow night. Brooch is bait, and we shall use it. That evening, Poirot devised a plan to trap the consortium. He instructed Lady Eleanor to keep the brooch visible under guard, while he and Hastings prepared to infiltrate the Dover docks. The ledger's decoded entries revealed the ship, the Serpent's Wake, as the meeting point, with Malone and Duval expected to deliver the brooch to LT's representative. Poirot contacted Inspector Japp, requesting a discreet police presence to encircle the docks to test Reginald's loyalty. Poirot staged a conversation within his earshot, mentioning a plan to transport the brooch to London for safekeeping. Reginald's reaction, a subtle glance toward the hawk, confirmed his interest. Poirot then slipped a second tracker into Reginald's coat, hoping he would lead them to L.T. As night fell, Poirot and Hastings reviewed the ledger one last time. A final entry, scrawled in haste, read, L.T. demands silence. The shadow moves tonight. The word shadow echoed the diary's warning, suggesting L.T. was the woman. Perhaps Mrs. Lavinia Gray, whose quiet observance had grown suspicious. Hastings, Poirot said, we go to Dover, but we watch Reginald. He is the key to LT, and LT is the serpent's head. The brooch is safe, but the truth is not yet ours. Still left under cover of darkness, the ledger's secrets burning in Poirot's mind. Stage for the consortium's final act, and Hercule Poirot was ready to direct the denouement, unmasking the shadow that had haunted Ashburn Hall. Chapter 12. The sting at sea. The Dover docks were a labyrinth of shadows and salt, the air thick with the creak of ships and attempts of seaweed. Hercule Poirot, his silhouette sharp against the flickering gaslights, stood on a pier, his gloved hands clutching the sapphire brooch, now a beacon in its carefully laid trap. The ledger's decoded entries had revealed a smuggling deal set for the night aboard the Serpent's Wake, where Henry Duval, the false diplomat, and Malone, the scarred smuggler, planned to deliver the blue key to an unknown buyer. Likely, the mysterious L.T. Clara's confession had secured the brooch, exposing her coerced theft, but Duval's escape from the Seagull Inn and the butler Reginald's burner phone tied him to the consortium. The diary's warnings of a serpent's bite and a woman close to the heart of the house lingered in Poirot's mind, pointing to a mastermind still hidden. Tonight he would stage a sting to ensnare the conspirators, using the brooch as bait and its little gray cells as a net. Captain Hastings, bundled against the chill, scanned the docks, his revolver tucked discreetly in his coat. Poirot, this feels like madness. Posing as a buyer. If Malone or Duval spot you, we're done for. Nan, mon ami, Poirot replied, his voice a velvet murmur, his mustache steady despite the sea breeze. The risk is calculated. The consortium expects the brooch, and we shall deliver it to her, so they believe. Inspector Japp's men are positioned, and our friend Charles has a role to play. Charles Ashburn, pale and jittery, stood nearby, his earlier flight to Whitehaven, now a distant misstep. Poirot had persuaded him to cooperate, leveraging his knowledge of Malone to ensure the trap's success. I don't like this, Poirot, Charles muttered, his hands stuffed in his pockets. Malone's dangerous. If he smells a rat, I'm finished. You are under Poirot's protection, Poirot said, his tone firm. You will signal when Malone arrives, and you will speak of redemption, not betrayal. The brooch is our leverage, and your courage is our key. The plan was audacious. Poirot would pose as a French antiquities dealer, using a forged letter of introduction from Duval's contacts, while Hastings and Charles would monitor the ship's perimeter. Japp's men, disguised as dock workers, would close the net once the buyer appeared. The brooch, secured in a velvet pouch, was a decoy replica crafted by a local jeweler. The real one locked in Lady Eleanor's safe as midnight approached. The Serpent's Wake loomed, its hull a dark silhouette against the moonlit waves. Poirot, cloaked in a borrowed seaman's coat to mask his distinctive figure, boarded the ship, his forged credentials clutched tightly. The deck was slick, the air heavy with anticipation. Malone awaited in the captain's cabin, a dimly lit room cluttered with nautical charts and empty bottles. Monsieur Lefebvre, Malone growled, eyeing Poirot's papers. Duval said, you'd bring the payment. Where's the gold? Poirot, adopting a nasal Parisian accent, smiled thinly. The gold is near Monsieur Malone. But first, the brooch. My client insists on authenticity. Malone's scarred face twisted. You'll see it when I see the gold. No tricks. Before Poirot could respond, a commotion erupted on deck. Charles's voice, sharp with panic, cut through the night. Malone. It's a setup. Someone's watching. Poirot's heart sank as Malone lunged for a drawer, pulling a pistol. Kyle, redeeming his earlier cowardice, tackled Malone, sending the gun skittering. Hastings burst in, revolver drawn, as Poirot seized the moment, grabbing a leather satchel from Malone's desk. Inside gleamed the real sapphire brooch, or so it seemed. Mondria, Poirot breathed, only to freeze as a shadow moved in the doorway. Duval, his face contorted with rage, aimed a derringer at Poirot. "You meddling fool," he spat. "You think you can outwit the serpent?" Before Duval could fire, a new voice rang out Charles from the deck. "Sniper, starboard side." The shot cracked, grazing Duval's arm, and he bolted, vanishing into the ship's hold. Poirot, clutching the satchel, signaled Hastings to pursue. But his focus shifted to the sniper's threat. Japp's men stormed the deck, their shouts mingling with the crash of waves. Poirot, with Charles's help, dragged Malone to the rail, where Japp's officers cuffed him. The satchel revealed not the brooch, but a clever fake glass replica, confirming Poirot's decoy had been anticipated. "Hastings," Poirot said, as they regrouped, "the sniper was no accident. Someone protects the consortium, and Duval escapes again, but Malone is ours, and he will talk." In the chaos, Charles confessed his tip about the sniper came from a dock worker's whisper. Someone loyal to Malone, but wary of LT's wrath. Poirot interrogated Malone in a dockside shed, Japp's men standing guard. "Who is LT?" Poirot demanded, his eyes boring into Malone's. "And where is the real brooch?" Malone sneered, blood trickling from a cut lip. "Tease the shadow you'll never catch. The brooch, gone, with Duval." "You're too late, Poirot." But Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Too late, Nan. The fake in your satchel proves you were double-crossed. Speak, or face the gallows alone." Malone's defiance cracked. "LT's a woman, runs the show from the shadows. I never met her, only got orders through Duval. She's close to the Ashburns, real close." Poirot's mind raced. Mrs. Lavinia Gray's sharp eyes and cryptic remarks resurfaced alongside Reginald's pernophone. The serpent's agent was near, and the sting, though successful in capturing Malone, had let Duval slip away. The brooch's fate hung in the balance, but Poirot held the fake clue to the consortium's desperation. Back at Ashburn Hall, Poirot gathered Lady Eleanor and Clara, presenting the fake brooch. "Madame, the real jewel is safe, but the consortium grows bold. Malone is in custody, but Duval and LT remain. We must prepare for their next move." Lady Eleanor clutched the real brooch, her voice trembling. "Who is this LT? Why do they torment us?" "A question for tomorrow," Poirot said, his gaze distant. "But know this, Poirot is close, and the serpent's bite will not strike again." As dawn broke, the docks quieted, but Poirot's resolve burned bright. The sting had netted Malone, but Duval's escape and the sniper's shot hinted at a mastermind still at large. With the ledger's secrets, Charles's redemption, and the fake brooch in hand, Hercule Poirot prepared for the final act, determined to unmask the shadow that haunted Ashburn Hall. Chapter 13. The mastermind revealed. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of Ashburn Hall, its golden rays glinting off the sapphire brooch that now rested in Lady Eleanor Ashburn's trembling hands. Poirot stood in the grand drawing room, his impeccable suit a stark contrast to the tension that hung heavy in the air. The sting at the Dover docks had secured the smuggler Malone, but Henry Duval's escape and the sniper's shot had deepened the mystery, pointing to a mastermind Delty, the serpent's agent within the household. The ledger's decoded entries, Clara's coerced theft, Charles Ashburn's redemption, and the cryptic warnings in Lord Reginald's diary had brought Poirot to this moment. A gathering of the household to unmask the true orchestrator of the sapphire's theft, the serpent-engraved key, the hairpin, the chloroform vial, and the fake brooch from the serpent's wake were pieces of a puzzle, and Poirot's little gray cells were poised to reveal the final picture. Captain Hastings, standing by the fireplace, shifted uneasily, his revolver tucked discreetly in his coat. "Poirot, this feels like the calm before the storm." "You're sure about Reginald?" He's been so unobtrusive. Precisement, mon ami, Poirot replied, his voice a velvet hum, his mustache steady as he surveyed the room. The unobtrusive are the most dangerous. Reginald, the butler, has watched, listened, and acted from the shadows. Burner phone, his letters marked RT, they betrayed his role. But is he, LT, the serpent's head? That we shall discover. Household assembled, their faces a tableau of apprehension. Lady Eleanor sat at the head, clutching the brooch, her eyes searching Poirot's for answers. Charles Ashburn slouched in a corner, his redemption at the docks tempered by lingering guilt. Clara, pale and wringing her hands, stood near the door. Her confession having saved the brooch, but not her brother Tom. Mrs. Lavinia Gray, her knitting needles silent for once, watched with hawk-like intensity. Dr. Alistair Thorne adjusted his glasses, his notebook forgotten, while Miss Beatrice Lau's usual vivacity was subdued, her auburn curls framing a wary expression. Henry Duval was absent, his flight to the continent a loose thread. But Reginald, the butler, stood by the sideboard, his gray eyes impassive. Poirot stepped forward, his cane tapping the floor like a metronome. Madame E.T., messieurs, he began, his voice commanding silence. A crime has been committed in this house of theft, not merely of a jewel, but of trust. The sapphire brooch, the blue key, locks of fortune hidden in the cliffs of Whitehaven, as Lord Reginald's diary revealed. Tonight, Poirot unmasks the serpent who orchestrated this betrayal. A murmur rippled through the room. Charles straightened, his voice hoarse. "You've got the brooch back, Poirot. Isn't that enough? Let it go." "Nan," Poirot said, his eyes locking onto Charles's, "the brooch is returned, but justice is not served until the mastermind is revealed. Clara, you stole the brooch, coerced by Henry Duval to save your brother." But Duval was a pawn, answering to another LTI, the shadow who moves within this house. Clara's eyes widened, her voice a whisper. "I told you everything, sir. I don't know who LT is." Poirot turned to the group, his gaze sweeping over each face. The ledger, found in Clara's journal, names J.V. Henry Duvaland, M.C. Malone, now in custody. Huh? But LT is the architect, the serpent's agent, close to the heart of the house. And you, Monsieur Reginald, have much to explain. Composure faltered, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "Sir, I'm but a butler, serving Lady Eleanor as I served her husband." "Indeed," Poirot said, producing the burner phone from his pocket. "Yet this phone, found in your quarters, speaks of the blue key and a deal in Dover. Letters marked RT close to LT Nan. You knew of Lord Reginald's smuggling, his vault, his fortune. You were his confidant, were you not, Reginald?" Hands clenched, but he shook his head. "I managed his household, sir, not his secrets." "Those letters, they're old, from before his death." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Old, perhaps, but relevant. The ledger speaks of a shipment, a deal set for last night, thwarted by Poirot's sting. You sent messages to Duval, ensuring the brooch's delivery. But you were betrayed, were you not? The fake brooch on the serpent's waistcoat was not your doing." The room fell silent, all eyes on Reginald. Lady Eleanor gasped, her voice trembling. "Reginald, you've served us for years. How could you?" Before Reginald could respond, Mrs. Gray's voice cut through, sharp and dry. "Oh, do stop the theatrics, Poirot. If Reginald's your villain, where's your proof? A phone, letters. Anyone could plant those." Poirot turned to her, his eyes narrowing. "Madame Gray, your interest is noted. You have watched, silent, but keen, while others faltered. Tell me, what did you know of Lord Reginald's ventures?" Gray's needles resumed their clicking, her smile sardonic. "I knew he was a rogue, charming but crooked. His shipping business was a front. Everyone knew that. But I'm no smuggler, Poirot. I'm just an old woman who sees more than she says. Precisement, Poirot said. And what you see, you use. Let us return to Reginald. He stepped closer to the butler, holding up a letter marked with the serpent symbol. This, found in your drawer, speaks of payment to a Dover account. The same account linked to Malone's consortium. You orchestrated the theft, using Clara's desperation and Duval's greed. URLT, the serpent's head. Reginald's mask cracked, his voice low but defiant. You're wrong, Poirot. I'm no mastermind. I followed orders, yes, from Lord Reginald's old partners. They wanted the brooch, the vault, everything. I had no choice. Debts, threats, you don't understand. Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. No choice, you say. Yet, you betrayed Lady Eleanor, who trusted you. Sniper on the serpent's wake you're doing to silence Duval. Reginald's shoulders slumped. Not mine. LT's. She's the one who calls the shots. I'm just the go-between. She. Poirot's voice sharpened, the room tensing. Name her, monsieur. Before Reginald could speak, Charles leaped to his feet, his face ashen. Enough. I can't let this go on. It's me, Poirot. I'm LTI, planned it, loosed Reginald, used Clara, used Duval. I needed the money, the vault, to pay off my debts. The room erupted in gasps. Lady Eleanor clutched the brooch, her voice breaking. Charles, my own nephew, how could you? Charles's eyes brimmed with tears. I'm sorry, Aunt Eleanor. I was desperate. Uncle Reginald's debts fell too. Me and the consortium, they threatened my life. I thought if I could get the brooch, the vault, I'd be free. Poirot's mustache twitched, his mind racing. A noble confession, Monsieur Charles, but unconvincing. Your debts are real, your fear genuine, but LT is no mere debtor. The ledger, the sniper, the precision, they speak of a colder mind. You protect someone, Nan. Charles shook his head, his voice cracking. No, it's me. I swear it. Poirot turned to Reginald, his cane tapping the floor. Monsieur, your silence condemns you. Name LT, or face the consequences alone. Reginald's eyes darted to Mrs. Gray, a fleeting glance that Poirot caught. It's her, he whispered, Lavinia Gray. She's LT. She's been pulling the strings since Lord Reginald's death. Gray's needle stopped, her face a mask of calm. Really, Reginald? Betraying an old woman? Not pathetic. Poirot stepped toward her, his voice like steel. Madame Gray, your wit is sharp, but your secrecy sharper. The ledgers, initials L, T. Lavinia Thorne, your maiden name, Nan. You knew Lord Reginald's smuggling, profited from it, and when he died, you took control. The sniper, the fake brocher orders to keep the consortium in line. Gray's smile was icy. Prove it, Poirot. You've got nothing but guesses. Poirot produced a letter from the ledger, its handwriting matching a note in Gray's room, found during a discreet search. This, madame, is no guess. Your hand betrays you, as does Reginald's fear. You used him, Duval, and Clara to secure the vault's fortune, but Poirot has thwarted you. Gray's composure cracked, her voice low. Reginald was weak, like all men. I built the consortium after Reginald's death. The brooch was my key to his empire. You've won this round, Poirot, but the game isn't over. Japp's men, summoned earlier, entered to arrest Reginald and Gray. Charles, sobbing, confessed his minor role, begging Lady Eleanor's forgiveness. She embraced him, her heart heavy but forgiving. Poirot handed the brooch to Lady Eleanor, his voice soft. Madame, your legacy is safe. The vault is secured, the consortium dismantled. Duval remains at large, but Poirot will not rest. The household dispersed. The weight of betrayal lingered. Poirot stood by the window, the sun setting over Ashburn Hall, his mind already turning to Duval's trail. The mastermind was unmasked, but the serpent's shadow stretched far, and Hercule Poirot was not done. Chapter 14. The serpent's last coil. The twilight sky over Ashburn Hall glowed with a bruised purple, casting an ethereal light across the estate's manicured lawns. Hercule Poirot stood in the grand hall, his polished shoes gleaming against the marble floor, his mustache a perfect arc of resolve. The unmasking of Mrs. Lavinia Gray as L.T., the mastermind behind the sapphire brooch's theft, had dismantled the heart of the smuggling consortium. Reginald, the butler, and Gray were in custody, their roles as pawns and puppet master laid bare by the ledger's decoded secrets and Poirot's relentless deductions. Clara's coerced theft and Charles Ashburn's desperate complicity had been resolved, with the brooch safely returned to Lady Eleanor. Yet Henry Duval, the false diplomat, remained a fugitive. His escape from the Dover docks a loose thread in the tapestry of justice. The diary's warnings of a serpent's bite and the lingering threat of Duval's buyer in Europe gnawed at Poirot's mind. Tonight he would pursue the final coil of the serpent, ensuring no shadow lingered over Ashburn Hall. Captain Hastings, his face etched with fatigue but alight with admiration, joined Poirot, a telegram from Inspector Japp in hand. "Poirot, you've done it again. Gray as L.T. Who'd have thought? But Japp says Duval was spotted in Calais, boarding a train to Paris. He's slippery, but we've got a chance to catch him." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice a velvet hum, his green eyes sharp with purpose. "Duval is the last link, a courier for the consortium's remnants. The sapphire is safe, but his knowledge of the vault's fortune and its buyers threatens Lady Eleanor's peace. We must follow, but first we ensure no further treachery within these walls." The hall was quiet, the household subdued after the dramatic confrontation. Lady Eleanor, seated in a velvet armchair, clutched the sapphire brooch, its facets catching the firelight. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice steady despite her weariness, "you've saved my family's honor. But Duval, will he return?" "Nan," Madame Poirot said, bowing slightly, "he will not dare, not with Poirot on his trail. But we must act swiftly. The ledger named buyers across the continent, and Duval seeks them. I leave for Calais tonight, with your permission." Lady Eleanor nodded, her eyes glistening. "Go and end this. I trust you, monsieur." Poirot turned to Hastings. "Prepare, mon ami. We travel light, and we travel now. But first, a final precaution. To ensure no lingering threats, Poirot conducted a discreet sweep of the estate, focusing on the secret passage behind the study. The alcove where Clara had hidden the brooch was empty, but Poirot's torch revealed a faint scratch on the stone, a fresh mark, as if something had been dragged recently. Kneeling, he found a tiny brass gear, no larger than a penny, its edges etched with a serpent's head. "Tiens," Poirot murmured, slipping it into an envelope. A piece of a mechanism, perhaps a lock or a trap. Duval or another planned a contingency. Hastings frowned, peering at the gear. "A trap? You think someone's still plotting, even with Gray and Reginald locked up?" "Possibly," Poirot said. "The consortium is wounded, but not dead. This gear suggests a device, perhaps tied to the vault in Whitehaven. We must warn Japp to secure it." They telegraphed Japp, requesting guards for the cliffside vault, then prepared for their journey. Poirot packed sparingly, his satchel holding the ledger, the serpent key, and Clara's journal, each a testament to the case's complexity. As they boarded a late train to Dover for the ferry to Calais, the weight of the chase settled over them. The crossing to Calais was turbulent. The sea churning under a starless sky. Poirot, undeterred by the pitching deck, reviewed Japp's telegram. Duval had been seen at a cafe near the Gare du Nord, meeting a man with a scar across his cheek. New player, possibly the buyer. The description matched no one in the ledger, adding a fresh layer to the mystery. In Calais, the air was crisp, the streets alive with the hum of late-night travelers. Poirot and Hastings navigated to the cafe, a smoky den called Le Serpent Noir, its name an eerie echo of the case. Inside, they spotted Duval at a corner table, his polished demeanor frayed, his eyes darting nervously. The scarred man sat opposite, a briefcase at his feet, his voice low but intense. Poirot, disguised in a nondescript coat and cap, took a nearby table, his ears straining to catch their words. Hastings, posing as a waiter, hovered close, a tray of coffee as his cover. "You promised the blue key," the scarred man growled, his French accent thick. "No jewel, no payment. The boss won't wait." Duval's voice was taut. "I had it," but Poirot interfered. "The fake was a precaution, Gray's orders. I can get another from the vault." Poirot's pulse quickened. Duval's mention of the vault confirmed its importance, and the boss suggested a new figure, perhaps a successor to Gray. He signaled Hastings, who spilled coffee deliberately, creating a distraction. As the scarred man cursed, Poirot slipped a tiny listening device under their table, a gadget from his investigative kit. They retreated to a nearby alley, the device's receiver crackling with their conversation. "The boss wants it by tomorrow," the scarred man said. "No more delays, Duval. Meet at the old warehouse, midnight." Duval's reply was strained. "I'll be there." But if Poirot's in Calais, we're in trouble. The device went silent, and Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Hastings, we have our rendezvous, the warehouse, midnight. We alert the French police, but we go alone first." It's the warehouse, a crumbling relic on the outskirts of Calais, loomed under a gibbous moon. Poirot and Hastings approached stealthily, their footsteps muffled by the damp earth. The listening device had revealed the scarred man's name, Victor, and his role as a courier for the boss. His identity remained elusive. The brass gear nagged at Poirot, suggesting a mechanical trap tied to the vault's treasures. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of crates, their serpent markings echoing the Whitehaven cache. Poirot's torch caught a glint of steel box, its lock engraved with a serpent, identical to the vault's door. Before he could investigate, footsteps echoed and Duval appeared, Victor at his side, a gun in hand. "You're late," Victor snapped, but his eyes widened as Poirot stepped from the shadows, his cane raised like a scepter. "Nan, monsieur," Poirot said, his voice calm. "Poirot is precisely on time. The game ends here." Victor raised his gun, but Hastings, hidden above, dropped a crate, knocking the weapon away. A scuffle ensued, Duval bolting for the door, but French police, alerted by Poirot, swarmed the warehouse, cuffing both men. The steel box, opened with the serpent key, revealed documents, names, dates, and a final letter from Gray, addressed to VL. "If I fall, you take the helm. The vault is yours." Worrell's mind raced. VL, Victor Leclerc, the scarred man, or another. The letter hinted at a successor, but the trail was cold. Duval, interrogated on the spot, confessed only to acting on Gray's orders, claiming ignorance of the new boss. As they returned to Ashburn Hall, the brooch safe and the vault secured, Poirot stood by the study's window, the brass gear in hand. "Hastings," he said, "the serpent is coiled, but not slain. VL is out there, and the fortune remains a lure. But for now, Lady Eleanor is safe, and Poirot has kept his promise." The case closed with Duval and Victor in custody, but the shadow of VL lingered, a challenge for another day. Hercule Poirot, his resolve unshaken, turned to the horizon, ready for the next mystery to test his little gray cells.